studio. I don't know. There are times I feel like we get to Friday and the Thursday sports calendar just doesn't offer a whole lot. Mark Dykton, I don't feel that way at all as we wake up here on this February 7th. We've got a ton to get to today, and we will try our best to do it in the next 3 hours. Good morning, everybody who are ending their week with us.
Yeah, there was a lot that happened last night. I was kind of like, okay, this show should be rather easy because we have about 3 big topics we could discuss. I don't know where you even want to start, whether it was the NFL honors last night, the Mike Woodson news that is making the rounds, the Pacers getting a late night win. I don't know if you stayed up for that whole thing, but I got a 2 a.m. text from Chris Denary to tell me about it. I know that for sure.
12:57 was the last I looked at the clock last night. That game was so wild. I think we got to start there, man. And again, a good Friday to everybody out there. Thanks for spending it with us. Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton, Kylan Talley, who's been excellent all week long. We'll round it out here one final time. That was one of the crazier NBA games I've seen. You're down $1 million in the first quarter. The Clippers hit 10 threes in the first quarter. 10.
I mean, the first quarter happened. You're like, I think I could go to bed.
Yes, I know. Trust me. Over. That was my thought. I was like, boy, I hate to be selfish for a second, but I guess a blowout wouldn't be the end of the world for my sleep cycle. Mm-hmm. But no one cares about that. The Pacers then come back so quickly, and Ben Shepherd.
It's almost like the team swapped jerseys at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, kind of felt that way. We won't say Ben Shepherd's name enough, but he was just huge in getting that back to the point where the Pacers had the lead at halftime, and then the second half, you were trading punches again. Siakam was an all-star. Mathurin was great. And boy, Tyrese Halliburton. At one point, Mark, it had been 6 straight quarters since he had scored a point.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to last game where he, of course, was scoreless. He didn't score in the first half, but when the game was on the line, Halliburton stepped back 3, big steal, attacked the rim, which is not something we typically say about him, for a huge layup. And the Pacers made the plays down the stretch, their biggest comeback win of the year, 119-112, and at game number 50, they are 29-21 on the year.
And that was against a full-strength Clippers squad, too. Kawhi played. That was nice to see. And James Harden's still out there. That was good to see. So it wasn't like they beat any, backups or anything like that. They took care of the full-strength Clippers squad. So that was good to see, too. Nice win there. So good to see there. And now, I don't know, are we not seeing Luka on Saturday?
That's what it sounds like, right? J.J. Redick seemed to indicate last night, by the way, LeBron, how about turning back the clock? 42, 17, and 8 for LeBron last night. Yeah, it sounded like from J.J. Redick pregame that looking like Monday for Luka. So do you unflex it?
I know. Does ESPN go? Actually, we'll go back to badminton now.
Well, I don't know. 4 o'clock on Saturday. Are they playing a TGL rerun here with the new indoor golf league? So we'll hit a lot on the Pacers front. Rick Carlisle's words to us were don't expect much of the trade deadline, and James Wiseman to create flexible roster space seems to indicate not a lot. So as expected, a pretty quiet trade deadline. I did appreciate Miles Turner tongue-in-cheek on social media. Boy, he got clocked last night. I don't know if, for those that didn't see it, Turner inadvertently gets hit by Benedict Mathurin playing defense in the first quarter. Both of them were kind of around the rim. He was down for about 10 to 15 seconds, Mark, and Carlisle had taken so many timeouts that he didn't want to take another one. And you do see this in the NBA where the guy's a little hurt and you're just hoping he can kind of get back on the offensive end or defensive end, etc. And all of a sudden, Turner starts to get back on the offensive end. And I say this in all seriousness and scariness, it looked like an NFL moment where the guy gets up and then all of a sudden his defenders or his teammates have to go and kind of grab him. That's what happened with Turner. He went to the locker room, did not return, so concussion protocol for Miles Turner. But the Pacers once again respond from a loss. They have not lost back-to-back games in nearly a month and a half. Other items of note to get to today. I think I have an apology.
Oh. To me? To somebody? To listeners?
I think our listeners.
Okay.
I think when we had Mike Chappell on Tuesday, I didn't do a good enough job making sure that we understood the new Hall of Fame criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw the rest of yesterday play out and more people kind of predict what the class could look like, I had forgotten we had tweaked things with the Hall of Fame. It used to be your 15 finalists were then voted down to 10, were then voted down to 5, and you got the 5-person class, period.
Yep.
Last night we got a 3-person class. The new criteria is you go from 15 to 10 to 7, and then all those Hall of Fame voters, Mark, they've got to get to the 80% threshold, which is kind of baseball-y, correct?
Yeah.
Doesn't baseball define like a number?
Yeah. It's like 80%.
So when you get to 7, you then vote for 5. I hope I'm not confusing people here. But when you get to 7, you vote for 5, and in order for those guys to be in the class, they have to have an 80% vote.
Mm-hmm.
Well, based off what Mike Chappell said last night, no shock here, Reggie Wayne didn't sniff the top 5, or the top 7, I should say. But Adam Vinatieri did. But yet he didn't get the 80% vote. So it is just a 3-person class. So in future classes, Mark, we're going to have a 3-person class, maybe a 4. It sounds like kind of a long shot to get to a 5. It's a different game now with the Hall of Fame.
Well,
so Reggie Wayne, again, didn't get to the final 10 last night. Adam Vinatieri got to the final 7, but didn't get that 80% vote. So that's why you see a 3-person class of Jared Allen, Eric Allen, and Antonio Gates. No Eli Manning.
Sterling Sharp, too.
But he is a senior
he's
candidate.
A senior
He
candidate,
doesn't
but
count
yes.
to the modern.
Yes,
so we probably, at least I won't mention Sterling Sharp much today, just to not overly confuse people.
I won't either because he's a Packer. So.
Well, yeah, very, very fitting for you. But my takeaway from last night is the new criteria impacted a lot, and these dudes aren't getting in anytime soon. There's no chance Wayne gets in next year. I don't think Reggie Wayne's getting in now for several years. And Adam Vinatieri is going to have to wait. That 2026 class is loaded.
Yeah. As soon as I saw, I think Schefter tweeted out the class of 2026 candidates, I was like, well, Reggie Wayne's not making that one. You got Larry Fitzgerald, Drew Brees. Like, that's 2 right there.
Well, Big Ben, Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson. Right now, Adrian Peterson is a first ballot. Larry Fitzgerald's a first ballot. And then probably one of the quarterbacks. And there's your class for next year. And that doesn't even include, like, Jason Witten has a very strong tight end resume. Frank Gore has a pretty good running back resume.
Here's some. Larry Fitzgerald, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Jason Witten, Frank Gore, Julian Edelman, Marquise Pouncey, LaShawn McCoy, Greg Olson, Alex Smith, Des Bryant, Stephen Gostkowski, Mike Pouncey.
Well, stop.
Todd
Gurley.
now we're getting a little crazy, but still.
But just start there. Brees.
Good Lord.
Brees, Adrian Peterson, and Fitzgerald. Boom, boom, boom. So.
Yeah.
That was NFL Honors Night. We'll share some of the awards with you. There was maybe one funny Snoop Dogg bit that involved Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. I laughed at it. We'll play that audio upcoming. Also, on this Friday morning, we'll certainly get to the news in Bloomington. And, Mark, I said to you earlier in the week, it just feels like an NFL head coach that's going to be fired.
Mm-hmm.
And it's felt that way for several weeks now. I've mentioned it. I mentioned to you in mid-January, I go, February 8th is about to be the most awkward home game inside of Assembly Hall.
Yeah.
Dusty May on the visiting sideline, Mike Woodson on the home sideline.
I don't know if yesterday's news changes that either.
Well, I think maybe there was an attempt to try and subdue that, but we don't have any clarity. Basically, for those that have not been following this story along, various reports yesterday, but the general reporting from National, Jeff Rabjohn, Zach Osterman, et cetera, boils down to Indiana and Mike Woodson are in discussions about stepping away at the end of the 2024-2025 season. So as we sit here, 7 a.m. Friday morning, it sounds like he wants to coach the rest of the year, but his return for next season is unlikely. How the exit looks, resignation, buyouts, however you want to look at it, Mark, that remains to be very much up in the air, and I would argue probably a bit messy.
Mm-hmm.
But the inevitable seems to be approaching the official finish line, which, again, for any of those that have listened to this show or have been following along, this should not come as a shock whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think, we could kind of see the writing on the wall. It's nice to finally get at least some kind of clarity that, okay, there is a light at the end of this tunnel, that this isn't going to go into the offseason and you're going to be like, well, is he or isn't he coming back, this and that. This seems to be like they're basically just trying to like parse out some, financial terms and everything like that and stuff. So a lot of stuff going on down in Bloomington. We're trying to effort a couple of people to get some thoughts on that. Worst case scenario, we'll have Jeff Rabjohn on with us on Monday to discuss it, because it seems like Monday's another kind of date where more news could be coming out there, that they're kind of going to get through the weekend and then reevaluate again on Monday. So we'll see what happens there. But I don't know. Are Hoosiers fans overly upset by this, or are they kind of like it's about time?
Oh, no, they are thrilled.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Yeah,
going to be bad news.
Yeah,
But I am curious to the Saturday reaction if that's going to be subdued like this.
Right. I don't know what it's going to look like. And tomorrow, 1 o'clock, Dusty May and the Michigan Wolverines against Indiana. I feel like at times we're kind of rehashing the same story with Woodson. Again, I've used the words, and I don't use them lightly. I think he's stubborn and lazy as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think on different levels, you can point to that. The recruiting, I'd argue the roster construction. I'd argue the style of play approach.
Trotting out the same lineup.
Maybe coaching staff as well. And if you want to look at these 4 years, I don't think anything sums it up more than just when the competition has been better, i.e. a team you saw in Wisconsin, of course, on Tuesday night, they get run off the floor more often than not. They have not beaten a ranked team in the last 2 years.
0-10.
If you look at the point margin of those games, 12-5, 25, 16, 20, 8, 12, 21, 4, and 20. I mean, they get run out of the gym in many of those games.
Yeah, they're 0-4 this season by a combined 58 points. So they're not even competitive. Not even close. And he has 28 losses of double digits or more. So that's...
Let the head coach hot board begin, and certainly a man that'll be on the visiting sideline will be arguably the hottest name that Indiana fans will want. So we'll get into that. Purdue back in action tonight. It's a handle your business night. They are a big favorite. We'll see about Desmond Claude, USC's leading scorer. He didn't play in their last game. Purdue's a 12-point favorite. That's a big old number in the Big Ten. They've got USC inside of Mackey again. That is a 7 o'clock tip. Do you watch any of the NFL honors?
I did because I was trying to see if that over hit of 10:05. We got really close with that NFL.
Oh, it was
like right there. We almost like hit the nail on the head there.
It was right there, yeah.
But no, once that ended, I stayed for the next segment to start, and it was Roger Goodell and Snoop Dogg like having a conversation about how they're big fans of each other, and it was awful and terrible. And I was like, okay, I think I can turn this off now. Now that I've seen that Reggie Wayne and Adam Vinatieri aren't going to sniff the Hall of Fame for a few seasons now, I think I can tune out.
Yeah, I went straight to Pacers. God, that game was it was just such a crazy game.
You're probably pissed because Reggie Wayne and Adam Vinatieri didn't make it, and then you're watching, and the Pacers are down 20 in the blink of an eye, and you're like, oh no, not another night like this.
Well, again, and then by halftime, they have the lead.
I know.
And then the second half, I would argue the Clippers probably threw more punches than the Pacers, and yet you got to the final few minutes, and Indiana made all the necessary plays. I mean, you look back, going back to the Hawks game, really, last Saturday, Mark, if you're going to evaluate how the Pacers looked in the last 4 games, you'd probably say they've been the worst team for, I would argue, most of the 16 quarters of play, but yet they're 3-1. And that's a sign of a team that you kind of have to just find ways. And Halliburton last night, it was getting ugly, and it was visibly frustrating. And it was kind of like the Halliburton we saw early in the year. Quinn Buckner was irate at him at one point for not shooting a floater, and it had kind of gotten to that point where it's like, wait a minute, is he like being too passive? You know, where is he at right now? Mentally, it had signs of what we saw early in the season. He hits a step back 3 with 3 minutes to go to take the lead. And then I mentioned that steal and that drive for the layup. So, you know, a lot can change in those final few minutes of an NBA game. And for Halliburton individually, boy, did he need that. And certainly the Pacers needed it in completing that comeback.
And especially now that you're going to be on national TV tomorrow against the Lakers that are probably not going to play Luka Doncic. But still show out. Still cap off this West Coast trip on a positive note. That would be nice. So we'll
2-1 so far. We'll see if they can make it 3-1 tomorrow, as Mark said, 4 o'clock. Jason Hammer, we had him on every Thursday during the football season. We figured no better time with the Super Bowl. Tons of prop bets to get to. He'll join us coming up at 9:30.
You're giving him a run for the money on the degenerate prop bets. You've been going to town this weekend.
I feel like you've enjoyed them.
I have. I've written a couple down.
I got a few more to throw at you.
I'm all here for it.
Would you like one?
Sure.
Stay away from the political ones.
Well, we went on those yesterday, which I wasn't opposed to.
Tush pushes for the Eagles.
Oh.
Over under 2.5.
Over. Hammer that.
Any scoring drive that goes less time than the national anthem.
Ooh.
National anthem usually what? Hovers around 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Are we going to get a quick scoring drive?
Those are some pretty high paced offenses. So I would say I'll take that one too. I'll say yes.
Now, yes is minus 300 there, so that's, obviously
Okay.
you don't get great odds. You do get great odds for a doinked kick, plus 600. So that's bet 10 to win 60. Are we getting a doink?
No. I'm going to play the odds and say no.
I can still hear the sound from Mitch Jeter
know.
doinking the kick in the national title game. I can still hear the aluminum in my ear.
Mm-hmm. It's a good feeling. It's a good sound when when it's your kicker doing that.
As a Bears fan, you can certainly speak
I can.
to that. That is
Shout out
Mark
Cody
Dykton.
Parkey.
I am Kevin Bowen. Kylan Talley with us. Greg Rakestraw, I'll bump him up a little bit earlier today. We'll talk NBA trade deadline. Quiet. I would say kind of a quiet Thursday in general around the league. Why did the Pacers make that one move they did? Scott Agnes will join us coming up at 9. And again, Jason Hammer, Super Bowl bets at 9:30. This is the Fan Morning Show right here on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. It was the final Pacer game that tipped past 8 o'clock the rest of the season. Mark Dykton, if you gutted it out, it was worth it and one of the more wild ones the Pacers have played all season long.
Yeah, we've kind of debated this whole West Coast trip is like, are you going to get rewarded if you stay up late for these Pacers games? Well, last night,
It took a while.
If it did. But if you did stay up, you were rewarded. Pacers topped the Clippers 119-112. Pascal Siakam led all scorers, 33 points, 11 boards. Mathurin with 25. Halliburton added 14 and got off his little scoring drought. It looked grim to start. Pacers were down 20 after the first quarter, but put up 42 points in the second, held off the Clippers the rest of the way after that. Rick Carlisle talked about the Wild win after the game.
First quarter was rough, no question about that. You know, they hit us with a hard punch, but we got a lot of depth and we got a lot of guys that are very resilient. And we just said, hey, we're going to hang in and chip away. And the second quarter, we kind of flipped it. And then, halftime's a 3-point game. And so from there, it's a 24-point game. And then, going into the fourth, it's 3 or 4, whatever it was. And it's just a slugfest, to see who can make a couple of plays.
Pacers have won 5 of 6. They're 2-1 on this West Coast trip and try to cap it off with another one tomorrow afternoon when they take on the Lakers. Coverage starts right here on the Fan at 3:30.
Shout out to Ben Shepherd. I thought he was outstanding in that second quarter, getting Indiana back into that game. It'll kind of get lost maybe in the box score. And then Halliburton made some plays late. He wasn't making plays at all in that first half, but he made them late, and that was huge. So, again, quiet trade deadline. We'll get to that here in just a second. All right, other news from last night. Your Hall of Fame class of 2025 has 0 Colts flavor to it. Again, kind of mentioned it in the opening segment. New criteria. We'll explain that again throughout the show for the Hall of Fame voting to only a 3-person modern class. It's Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Eric Allen. Someone needs to explain Eric Allen's induction to me because I'm scratching my head at it. So Adam Vinatieri got close, but did not get in. Reggie Wayne, by all accounts, sounds like wasn't very close.
Which
again,
is ridiculous.
This 2026 class upcoming is loaded. So I would venture to guess a year out, you won't have a Colts player going next year either. Next year's class, Drew Brees, Adrian Peterson, Larry Fitzgerald, among others. So it is going to be a long time of waiting. I think it's going to be very long for Reggie Wayne because no wideout got in, Mark.
No.
Torrey Holt, I think, remains above Reggie on some of that, hierarchy of the Hall of Fame voting. So we will not have a Colts player in the class of 2025.
And the great debate leading into the class was, is Eli Manning a first ballot Hall of Famer or not? He's not.
And I agree with that. That's probably the only thing I agreed with last night in the Hall of Fame selection.
So Peyton was in New Orleans, but it wasn't for Eli.
No.
So there you go. Elsewhere, the Fever signed 2-time WNBA champion Sydney Colson to the roster, so they continue to just keep adding there. And then the other thing I had was R.I.P. Virginia Hallis McCaskey, the owner of the Bears, passed away at 102 yesterday.
Yeah, that was she is I'm trying to think here. So George McCaskey, Mark's been mainly the voice for the team for the last X amount of years.
Yep.
And that's her son.
Yes, correct.
Other things I had, Purdue tonight back in action, 7 o'clock. That's Peacock. They're favored by 12.5 over USC. USC has won in the Eastern time zone, Central time zone, however you want to look at it, this season. They won at Nebraska and at Illinois. Now, they got 31 from their leading scorer, Desmond Claude, in the win at Illinois, but he did not play last time out with a bone bruise, so that will be something to certainly keep an eye on. And then other awards from last night. Coach of the Year was pretty close. Kevin O'Connell, 25-19 over Dan Campbell. He won that. And Josh Allen is your MVP, 27-23 over Lamar Jackson.
That one surprise you?
Some close vote. Maybe a little. I mean, I largely think that's a flip of a coin. I thought Allen had a tremendous season, obviously. Lamar did as well. And we'll continue to touch on the news from Bloomington. If you missed it yesterday, we'll hit on that the other side. All but a formality, it sounds like. How it looks, though, remains up in the air. Michael Woodson's time in Bloomington coming to an end. Greg Rakestraw is going to join us next. This is the Fan Morning Show right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Well, Kylan's giving you a little pre-Super Bowl act right there. John Batiste coming up on Sunday. Again, it'll be Kendrick Lamar at halftime. We'll get you set, some Super Bowl bets, Super Bowl props. Jason Hammer going to join us. Coming up at 9:30, Greg Rakestraw in a few. Again, the news from Bloomington yesterday, we still are, I would say, a little bit vague on exactly how it's going to end, but by all accounts, Mark Dykton, the Mike Woodson, Indiana head coaching marriage, will be coming to an end. Those are the reports from various outlets at the end of this season. How it looks, resignation, firing, whatever, remains to be seen. Obviously, this date's pre-Woodson, but it is just so amazing to me, Mark, that 8 straight NCAA tournaments, and they have 2 wins. The 2 wins are Wyoming and Dayton and Kent State. 8 years of play in the NCAA tournament. They have 2 wins. The last time Indiana University has made 3 straight NCAA tournaments, you got to go back to Mike Davis bleeding into Kelvin Sampson.
Oh, my God.
I mean, 3 straight tournaments. Mark, 68 teams
I know.
make
The
it.
tournament.
It's not like this is the Hall of Fame class for 2025.
They're not rewriting the rules here.
It's just astonishing when you
They've
get into this.
They've expanded, actually. They made it easier to get in.
Like, you get in these bigger picture look at the program, and again, I've said it for years, there's no program, I think, in college basketball that invests more, what are their fan base, NIL, facilities, however you want to look at it, than Indiana, and gets less on return.
I mean, that's not surprising. I don't think that they're going to go the firing route. It seems like they're working on like a mutually agreeing to part ways, kind of like how we always thought.
Do you think they're trying to avoid the scene tomorrow?
I think they are, because I mean, we've talked about it all week that we just think it's going to be a blank show on Saturday with Dusty May in town, and how they need to, cue up the band as soon as they announce Mike Woodson's name.
Do the flags, do the under 8 timeout when you're announcing the visiting head coach.
It is curious timing that this comes out right before what is probably going to be one of the more hostile crowds at Assembly Hall this season, for sure. So was that planned? Was it they're hoping that it maybe, calms everyone down a little bit? But there, like you said, there's not really a resolution. It's kind of still in limbo as far as it sounds like he's not going to be back, but we also don't know how or when, it's officially going to come out that, yes, we're parting ways with Mike Woodson, or he's decided to resign, or whatever.
Let's talk more about this with Greg Rakestraw. He joins us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Rake, good morning to you. Your level of, I guess, surprise by what we saw announced, again, nothing from a finality standpoint in Bloomington, but it looks like the Mike Woodson head coaching marriage with Indiana University is coming to an end.
Not surprised at all. I mean, it's the conclusion that I think everybody had come to. The stats that you guys laid out in the last segment of the show, and I took that from Jeff Rabjohn's kind of blurb about this last night. I mean, the record the last couple of years against ranked competition, the amount of 20-point losses, everybody has lived this. And again, the way that I looked at the last couple of years, now that we have entered the unabashed capitalism era of the sport, they didn't do that to the degree they should have in terms of building their roster last year hitting the transfer portal, learned from their mistakes, went out and did that this year, and went out and got, kind of the best team from other major programs they could put together, and they're still making the same mistakes and still having the same results. That tells you a change had to be made. So you might as well get out in front of it, with 5 weeks to go in the regular season, and that way you leave no doubt, and you can be openly and actively searching for whom the next head coach can be. So when the season ends, you can kind of hit the ground running and try to, again, fix that last stat that you gave, that it's been 20 years since you've made 3 consecutive NCAA tournaments. That's pretty damning as well, hearing that leading into the conversation. So I am a Blutarski level of surprised that is officially 0.0.
If Scott Dolson called you, Greg Rakestraw, and said, Greg, where should I make call 1 and 2, you would advise him where?
Well, given what some of these guys are making, I'm not sure I'd let the phone call get past me. I'd at least see if I can get some money up front and see what I could do. I think you have to kind of follow the sadly, there's been enough of these. the normal, pecking order. Make the phone call to Boston. Call Indy's favorite mass hole and go. And I did put an M in front of that, by the way, so Kylan, no dump button is necessary. And just go, hey, are you interested in now? Okay, thank you very much. And then you can have the debate or discussion. Is Dusty May second on that list? Does he have that out if the Indiana job opens up? That has been reported. Then you can kind of go, the next set of candidates. What type of candidate with baggage do you go after? Is it Chris Beard? Is it Bruce Pearl? But to me, I think the example that shows you, hey, it doesn't have to necessarily be the biggest name. You can go a little bit of a different direction. Look at what Pat Kelsey is doing at the University of Louisville. He was not one of the first names that was brought up, discussed, etc., and they were a bigger train wreck than Indiana has been. I mean, they were brutal the last couple of years under Kenny Payne. Louisville's going to be an NCAA tournament team. And, oh, by the way, they throttled Indiana when they played them before Thanksgiving. So there's certainly a list of heavyweights, but I don't think it has to be a heavyweight. And, again, you can look no further than football. Maybe in football circles, Kurt Cignetti was talked about a lot. Was he on the tip of the tongue of Indiana football fans last year when they moved on from Tom Allen? Probably not. And so are big names available? Yes. Does it have to be a big name for it to work? I don't think that has to be the case at all.
Greg Rakestraw joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline for the weekly Friday conversation. Rake, the timing of this announcement, we were kind of been going back and forth about, well, it seems like curious timing that just so happens that right before what we're expecting is going to be a hostile crowd on Saturday with Dusty May in attendance, this report comes out last night. Any thoughts by you that this is was a timing situation with this announcement, or is this just they got to the point of no return where they're like, yeah, this is the end of the road anyway. We might as well get ahead of this.
This is where you have the overlapping circles.
Yeah,
I think both things can be true. I think 26-4 to start the game in Madison probably puts you to that position as well. But no, I think primarily this is all right. We have come to this conclusion. This is not getting better. We need to move on. This is also a person that obviously has a great legacy in the program as a player. Let's try to minimize some damage here as well to kind of save that. Now, do they then benefit from the timing of this because of whom is coming in this weekend? Absolutely they do, but I don't think there's much of a need to overcomplicate this. I think this is very much, hey, this is not working. Let's move on. And again, by making this public, you're not going through the backdoor channel, so to speak. It is simply, okay, we've got to move on. Now let's make sure we can hit the ground running as soon as this season is over to try to be as competitive as possible next year.
Rake, another story that happened last night out in New Orleans, the fact that Reggie Wayne and Adam Vinatieri did not get the call to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And now, looking at 2026's class, doesn't look like either of them are going to get the call next year either. Your thoughts on why Reggie Wayne in particular cannot seem to get himself in there, but also Adam Vinatieri going to have to wait at least another year there. What do we think about this new format for the Pro Football Hall of Fame elections?
Well, in terms of the format, I mean, it's 6 and 1 half does the other. It's the same for everybody. I feel bad for Reggie because I think he's a Hall of Famer. But I think obviously there is also not exactly a lot of national clamoring for him the way that we do here. There's probably much more national recognition of Adam Vinatieri, not being a Hall of Famer. Some of that I think is, first ballot kickers, so to speak, or usually it takes a while for that position, even though Adam is widely considered as the GOAT of that group, to actually be acknowledged. But I thought you guys did a great job of laying it out. Next year's class is pretty remarkable. And there will be, a player or two that you would just assume would be a first ballot Hall of Famer that are not going to make it. Drew Brees, duh. But I would put Ben Roethlisberger in that group too. I don't think Rivers is going to be, but even without the Super Bowl championship ring, I mean, his career to me would be worthy of that. But if you're getting down to 7 and it's got to be you only can vote for 5, the math pretty much tells you it's not going to be more than 5. And so given how good next year's group is, Reggie's not getting in next year. Adam's not getting in next year. And frankly, even though he's not a Colt, we claimed him for one February Sunday in early 2012. Eli Manning's not getting next year either at this point. So very disappointed for Reggie because I think he's worthy. But it also may now get to the point he may have to go the route that Sterling Sharp did. It may be a Veterans Committee thing, sadly for Reggie, given kind of how the math seemed to be working against him at this juncture.
Yeah, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Adrian Peterson, no-brainers for next season or next year, and that doesn't even include, as Rake said,
and
Big Ben. We'll see about Philip.
Kevin, I would put Ben. I think to me, I think Ben Roethlisberger's a no-brainer too. I really do. I think those 4 put the Sharpie in right now.
And you can make cases for Rivers and Frank Gore and Jason Witten as well. It's just it's one of the more loaded classes we've ever had. That's the voice of Greg Rakestraw. You obviously know him very, very well. Rake girls sectional time around the state. I think weather-wise, hopefully will be good. I know Northern Indiana had some postponements earlier in the week. What does your weekend docket look like?
So a night off tonight, which is rare. Tomorrow night, the girls sectional final at Noblesville. The expected matchups, HSE and Noblesville. HSE undefeated, number 1. They gave LC their only loss to an Indiana school in the last 2 years, the buzzer beater back over the Christmas holiday. Those two would not see each other, HSE and Lawrence Central, until a potential state final. Maybe the biggest hurdle that Hamilton Southeastern has would be Noblesville if they see them tomorrow night. Noblesville led by Meredith Tipner, Miss Soccer in the state of Indiana, who has a chance to be Miss Basketball in the state of Indiana as well. She only played 1 in college. She's going the hoops route. She's going to play at Miami of Florida. She averages 26 points a game. She's the second leading scorer in Noblesville basketball history. That would be number 1 versus number 10 in this state if they meet up. Zionsville and Westfield trying to get in the way of that in the semifinals tonight. But you can catch that tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on my Indy TV 23. And streaming free, as all postseason games do, at ihsaatv.org.
On the boys' side, looked like we almost had quite the upset at Westfield last night with Fishers flirting there with what would have been, I would say, a loss that I certainly didn't see coming.
Here's the great thing, and this tells you how good Fishers is. Westfield's a top 5 team, and we all would have felt, man, that's a massive upset. That's how good Fishers is, and frankly, that's how well coached that Westfield is. I had Westfield against Carmel back when Carmel was much closer to full strength than they are now. Westfield won that game 52-43 back on January the 11th. Westfield does not wow you. They don't pass the eyeball test. They just play hard, share the basketball, do the little things, are exceedingly well coached. And I cannot speak highly enough of what Shane Sumter has done, in the days after Braden Smith. Because for those that don't remember, when Braden, playing on a broken foot really, led them to a sectional championship 3 years ago, that is the lone boys basketball sectional championship in the history of Westfield High School. And while they have not won one the last couple of years, they've not had that level of talent, yet they've been really good the last couple of years. I think Shane has done a phenomenal job at Westfield High School.
Rick, you said you have tonight off. How does a Greg Rakestraw spend a rare Friday off?
I'm kind of worried he's sick when he said that. I got nervous when he said that.
Right. I'm actually going to spend the night at home and remind the kids they look like me.
Oh,
the wife and I kind of talked about, do we go out, have a date night, go out to dinner? We actually had like a couple of those last week. So we're just going to Netflix and chill. Will be the Rakestraw household tonight.
Man. Close the curtains at the Rakestraw household. It'll be a little spicy up there. Greg Rakestraw.
I meant actual Netflix. I didn't mean.
All right.
I didn't mean the bounce chicka bounce Netflix. Yeah. No, we're gonna watch some Netflix on this today.
There you go.
Well, the millennials would view that maybe in a different light than Greg Rakestraw.
Perhaps that equaled the masshole joke that I told earlier in the conversation.
Rake, have a great weekend, brother.
See you, boys.
We'll see you in studio next Friday.
Greg Rakestraw, yes, he will be in studio with us coming up next week. Mark Dykton will be in, obviously, on Monday. We'll have James Boyd in a couple days. Brendan King, I think, making an appearance as well coming up next week. Did you see the Miles Turner tweet yesterday at the trade deadline?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the survivor. I mean, he's been doing it for the entirety of
Are
his
you a
NBA
Survivor
career.
TV show? guy?
No, I haven't watched Survivor since I think season 2. And what are we on now? Season like 47 or something?
I'm afraid I think my brother-in-law is a fathead of Jeff Probst in his room.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he's in a
That's not weird at all.
Survivor show, Survivor League.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I was like when Survivor first came out, like in the early 2000s, it was like all the rage. I watched the first 2 seasons, and I
What
kind of
season are we on? We got to be north of.
That's what I'm
are we
saying.
at-
I don't know.
Are we
I
at
feel-
50?
We got to be close. I feel like they do like multiple seasons a year
Rupert's
now.
kids got to be on the Survivor show at this point.
What season of Survivor are we on?
It's got to be close to 50. Great tweet from Miles Turner yesterday. Yeah, no surprise there that we didn't.
Season 47.
Gosh, that is absurd. It sounds like the James Wiseman move. That was the only thing the Pacers did yesterday to the Raptors. It's pretty complicated. Scott Agnes will join us at 9 to explain it. But I think to sum it up, it's like you did that to create a roster spot, a little bit of more flexibility roster-wise than financially. But, when Miles Turner gets hit in the head last night and leaves the game in concussion protocol, it was kind of a reminder of like, oh, wow, they could use him. Chris Teneri mentioned this at the start of the telecast. Enrique Freeman right now is still in the 2-way deal. You can only be with the big league club. I think Daenerys said 50 games out of the 82. Last night was game 50, and Enrique Freeman wasn't dressing. So if you watch last night's game, I mean, they played Obi Toppin at the 5 a whole lot last night. So I would assume they would use that extra roster spot for a healthy center. Emphasis on healthy, because Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman obviously weren't that. So that was the lone Pacer move. Again, a team option for Wiseman next season. They sent him there to Toronto. They got back like a super protected second-round
Top
pick.
55 protected.
Yeah, and the Raptors obviously aren't going to be a top 5 team in the league next year. So, in all likelihood, this was just done purely for the roster spot and open up a little bit of financial flexibility.
The NBA, like, protected picks, unprotected, like, it's so complicated.
It's so confusing.
I know. Then you get into all the contract situations and supermax and this and that and stuff. It's like the NBA might have the most complicated system. That's why I'm glad we have guys like Tony East and Scott Agnes and Alex Golden here, so they can dumb it down for us idiots, and we can kind of figure it out. That okay, now I understand.
I saw Cody Zeller was traded yesterday. I didn't realize Cody Zeller was still in the NBA.
I don't know. There's a lot of those guys too, where you're like I said, Kelly Olynyk, who he's still bouncing around. That's what I like about the trade deadline, is that you're always like, oh yeah, that guy's still around. Or then you see the rosters that they release, and I think it was the Wizards or whatever. Somebody was having fun with that, where they tweeted out all the people that were out for the Wizards, and it was just like, is anyone playing for that team tonight? How are they fielding a team? Didn't seem like they would have 5 healthy bodies out there with how many guys are out. So just fun, the enjoyment of the trade deadline with the chaotic lineups. These are not times you want to be betting on NBA games when you don't know who's going to be playing at any given day. So.
Jason goes, last 2 Pacer games, same outcome. TV on, I fall asleep before tip-off, on the couch, wake up about 2 a.m. to stumble to the bathroom, watch 0 minutes of either game, a stiff neck from the couch. And you got to win last night.
Yeah.
If you fell asleep at the end of the first quarter, you had to wake up and think you were dreaming if you opened up your sporting app and saying the box score.
Yeah. Throw a heating pad on the neck. You'll be all right. And then don't worry, the West Coast trip's almost over. And you got an afternoon game tomorrow.
Well, 4 o'clock Saturday.
Yeah.
Much,
but that's
much
it.
better.
But you're not staying up late.
Did you like DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs for the Cavs? I thought that was the biggest move yesterday, and it certainly impacts the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. I mean, the Cavs are obviously, trying to pull the trigger to get something going and everything with the way they've started the season so far. So I like that move. But yeah, other than that, yesterday was kind of a downer as far as last-second deals of any kind. It seems like everything happened kind of on Wednesday.
Yeah, obviously it was a very active deadline. We just didn't have anything maybe day of. Couple other Indiana-related notes. Jalen Hood-Schifino was waived by the Jazz, so his NBA career continues to go down a path that he obviously did not want. And then Jake LaRavia, who has continued to get minutes for Memphis off the bench and is shooting the basketball well, he got shipped out to the Kings. So Jake LaRavia, the LC product, of course, Indiana State, Wake Forest, out west here. But I do like Hunter to the Cavs.
Yeah,
I think that gives them a little bit of an opportunity to try and guard Tatum and Brown. When you get into the postseason. Karis LeVert and Georges Niang, 2 former Pacers.
I know. I rubbed my eyes when I read that one. I was like, this is like the ghosts of Pacers past here.
Moving from Cleveland to Atlanta.
Then Yusuf Nurkic, who I've always been a fan of, he landed with the Suns.
Gosh, I feel like he's been traded a lot too.
I'm sorry, they traded him to the Hornets. The Suns traded him to the Hornets. But yeah, Nurkic I always liked on the Trailblazers, but he was always lost in Portland. Now he's kind of going to get lost in Charlotte, I guess. Oh, well.
Survivor logo tweet from Miles Turner. Turner was very good on social media late last night. He also had a, again, I hope he's doing okay. Judging by the fact that he's posting things on social media, it makes you think he can at least see and type. He did a GIF of him and Benedict Mathurin in a UFC fight. For those that missed it, Mathurin inadvertently hit Turner last night, which led to, I mean, it was a wobbly NFL moment from Turner. It was a little scary. He got to the bench and James Johnson's putting his arm around him and everything. He eventually got to the locker room there. So Turner exited after 6 minutes last night. So a lot of Thomas Bryant and again, small ball, Obi Toppin playing the 5 and the bench helped get the Pacers back into it. We'll hit a lot more on that as it was a wild one in LA for Indiana. More on the Hall of Fame voting. Again, it has changed a bit, and certainly the Colts felt the ramifications off of that, and we'll continue to look at the Super Bowl. A little over 48 hours away. Where should the prop bets be? We'll toss those your way coming up. It's a Friday. It's 8 o'clock. Thanks for spending it with us.
Okay, so we had our conversation with Greg Rakestraw a little early, so we've got the 8 o'clock hour open. We're going to be a bit busy in the 9 o'clock, though. We've just confirmed Zach Osterman going to join us at 9:05, so we're not going to talk to Scott Agnes today. But obviously some big news coming out of Bloomington.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk to Zach at 9:05, and then Jason Hammer going to pop in the studio for some Super Bowl prop bets at 9:30.
And with Zach, I'm curious, we have to have, I don't know if we have to, but like, should we expect an announcement from Indiana at some way, shape, or form to clear up any of this PR, mess? I think is an aggressive. It's just awkward right now.
Yeah.
It's really awkward with the whole Mike Woodson thing.
It'll be curious to see if they put out like a school statement or something.
Yeah,
about
I'm
these
curious
reports.
about that. From a buyout standpoint, Zach will confirm these figures. I believe it's $8.4 million if you were to fire him. Obviously, what would a resignation mean? There's a lot of legality stuff, of course, behind the scenes. Zach is usually all over this stuff. And, I think lastly, it's time to start to look at what qualities do you want? And I say this, go back to, and I think Scott Dolson's earned the right to make this hire. I think the Curt Cignetti hire was such a absolute grand slam. Remember, he was very specific in wanting someone that had built programs up, that had preferably had a little bit of quarterback offensive influence, a little bit of a recruiting background was something that he desired as well. How would you kind of view what you want Indiana, Indiana basketball ain't Indiana football, but, what would that look like for this next hire here? So, Zach Osterman, as Mark said, coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. We'll continue to get you ready for what are we, 59? Super Bowl 59,
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yep.
From New Orleans.
Next year, the Super Bowl gets its ARP card, I think.
Oh, look at that.
By the way, I'm just noticing you've got a national championship sweatshirt on.
What a pathetic dad joke by you.
What are you talking about?
Super Bowl 60
What are you
comment.
talking about?
I have
That was outstanding by me.
I have a what sweatshirt on?
You have a national championship.
Yeah, this is the only thing that they gave this to me when I checked in.
They gave it to you? I
Yeah.
thought you purchased it.
No. Should I have bought more should I have got like a national championship coffee mug?
I mean, it's not like it's Augusta National, so I mean, you're not getting
Well, some might say Notre Dame hasn't been in that game in a while,
That's
so
true.
I should try and
and then we have been
create some
when they
memories from
have
it.
been, it hasn't been overly close. But no, I mean, if you got a nice sweatshirt, seems like it's doing the job and everything like that. But yeah, I was going to ask you what that ran you, because I know obviously the prices at the national championship game for concessions was quite low. I was curious what their
Now that's an Arthur
apparel.
Blank thing, right? The Falcon
Yeah.
Stadium generally has low concession prices.
Yeah, and that's a trend that I implore all other professional teams to start taking up. I think the Suns are going to start doing it soon and everything like that. But having affordable concessions for people, because you're paying already, hand over fist for these ticket prices, and to bring a family of 4 or however many kids you got, you got to feed some people. So lower concessions, you think people will be apt to buy more concessions at the games instead of nickel and diming people like, should I get the pizza or should we get the chicken wings? Get both, as long as you're not costing like $18 per meal. So I like that trend that is starting in professional sports. The cheaper concessions and all that stuff for the paying customers that are going there, that's well done there.
And yet Chick-fil-A open because it was a Monday game.
I know.
The Chick-fil-A's in
Probably
the stadium usually not open for Falcons games.
I mean,
of
there's no
course.
way that people work there. That's their only job, because they've never worked there. When is that? That thing's not open on the weekdays.
Well,
you can't just walk in the stadium.
You got Atlanta United soccer, maybe a couple concerts.
Yeah,
in
but you're
there.
not just open. Like, if the stadium is doing like stadium tours, that Chick-fil-A's not just open.
That'd sound like a hell of a way to spend a tour.
I know.
Okay, coming up Sunday again, 6:30. It is Chiefs and Eagles. Thank you to listener Fowler. He sent this to me yesterday. I think it's a reminder of just the roster building that the Colts need to make sure that they don't ignore. They looked at kind of where Kansas City and Philadelphia, these two starting lineups, where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them were drafted, free agency trades, et cetera, et cetera. The Chiefs and Eagles each have 4 players on offense they acquired elsewhere. Kansas City, both their offensive tackles, they acquired elsewhere. If you look at it for the Eagles, you can make the case arguably their 2 best offensive players they got elsewhere. A trade,
Yep.
of course, for A.J. Brown, and then obviously the signing of Saquon Barkley. You look at defensively, I think each of them had 5 defenders they acquired elsewhere. So, we're talking, I would say, a decent number of players outside of the draft, and certainly some higher quality players. The Colts last year, Mark, all 11 starters from the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say defensively, 9 of the 11, Buckner, And Kenny Moore, and I know a lot of people even view Kenny Moore at times as like a homegrown talent, considering they acquired him, before his first ever NFL preseason, or I should say before his first ever NFL regular season. So it's just another reminder, and this won't be breaking news to anybody that's listened to me before. You need to use other avenues to build it. And Ballard has been incredibly stubborn with the heavy focus on the draft. Should there be a focus? Certainly. I think your core does largely need to come from that, but ignoring so much of the other ways to add to your roster, to create competition, to create edginess, I think has been a hugely missed opportunity in the Ballard era.
It's been an over-reliance on the draft because you're drafting these guys and you're just like, we're just going to plug them in and we're going to see what they go. You're foregoing free agency and you're just putting all your chips in on what you do in the draft.
And it's confusing because he's admitted before the draft's a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a crapshoot, why are you so overly reliant on it?
Right. I mean, I get it. Like you want as many draft picks as you can, so you can throw as many darts at the board because not all of them are going to hit. But when you're not doing that and you're not spending in free agency, you're putting more reliance on those guys being hits. And so when they don't turn out that way, it's a bigger blow to your roster because you're like, well, we drafted these people, we have to see what they can do. And when they're not panning out and you don't have any free agency to fall back on, then it's going to be a struggle. You see what Howie Roseman has done in Philadelphia. He's the best at roster construction in the NFL, and you could just see how he can do that with plugging in and playing, whether it's veterans and then getting maybe guys that are impact rookies like a Jalen Carter who have some red flags on them, and he's able to balance that act with the young rookies and the veterans and get a very solid product out there with Jalen Hurts and all that stuff. Same can be said for the Chiefs. Obviously, you have Patrick Mahomes and you have Travis Kelce, but they've also traded away Tyreek Hill and everything like that, and they haven't missed a step. They have almost adapted year after year in the NFL, where every year you think that the Chiefs are going to take a step back, they just find a way to just be there at the end. And here they are again on Sunday, going for a third straight Super Bowl victory.
2-minute warning prop.
Mm-hmm.
Will the 2-minute warning hit exactly at 2 minutes? 2-0-0.
Mm-hmm.
Yes is plus 400. So that's $10 to win 40. Doesn't that seem like a lock?
I don't know if it's a lock because you can always have those, like, if there's a team that's trailing and they have the ball, they might try to get a quick, one last play before the 2-minute warning, get down to like 158 or something like that.
But you need that in both halves. I mean,
right.
unless the play is snapped from, 201 to like 208,
mm-hmm.
I feel like you're good.
I mean, that's not a bad play. That's probably one of your better ones out there, I would say. Can I ask you a question regarding Saquon Barkley?
Sure.
Are the Chiefs going to stop him? Because I feel like something's going to give on Sunday because Spagnuolo has done a fantastic job with this Chiefs defense, slowing down opposing running backs. They've not given up a 100-yard rusher all season. And Saquon Barkley has rushed for 100 yards, 5 straight games now, 9 of the last 10. So something's going to give on Sunday. So are they going to try to put all their eggs in stopping the Saquon Barkley train from rolling?
Yeah, I think.
And they're going to put it on Jalen Hurts?
I think it's the biggest storyline of the game. And I thought, you go back 2 weeks, Mark, I thought Buffalo got away from James Cook way too much in that fourth quarter especially. I thought if they would have rode Cook a little bit more and just really got the ball in Cook's hands, I think Buffalo wins that game. So just in general, I don't think you look at Kansas City's defense, I don't necessarily look at them and think, boy, they've got a bunch of, great run stuffers and all of that. But yet, seemingly when they need to make a critical play, they oftentimes do that. So, how does that look? How effective is Hurts after 2 weeks off, too, from a run standpoint? I thought he looked very limited in that divisional round game. And then, he gets in the end zone 3 times against Washington. So, of all these runs, that running back on the other sideline for Kansas City, I don't think they're used to that. And how much just ball control can you play with Barkley? How much is that the keep away? When you think about the Colts' 2 wins over Kansas City, as shocking as it is, that Mahomes has never beat the Colts in the regular season, they largely played some ball control. And they especially did it on the Sunday night game there in 2019 with Marlon Mack. And Jacoby Brissett was your starter there, and you got it to be a little bit of a low-scoring game. So
I need Saquon Barkley to score 2 touchdowns.
That's a prop that you've gone with?
Well, I had a bonus bet that I had to use because it expired before the Super Bowl, so I threw it down. It was like a $27 bonus bet. And I was like, I'll do Saquon Barkley 2 touchdowns.
So that's to win what?
170.
Oh, wow. Jeez, that's a good payday.
Yeah.
Now, do you like the Saquon to rush for 25 yards or more in each quarter? Or is that
Well, that would be going against what we just talked about with the Chiefs holding
is that a
opposing
little
running
too
backs.
rich there? That is 10 to win 75, so that would be 20 to win 150.
So 25 in each quarter.
25 or more in each quarter.
I think earlier in the week I would have taken that, and after looking at what they've done to opposing running backs, I don't know. But you got to think that the Eagles are not going to just go away from Saquon Barkley like the Bills did with James Cook. Saquon Barkley's been a workhorse all season long. I would think, you know what, I would still go with that one. I would say that they're going to find a way to still feed him, and that streak breaks for the Chiefs. Because Saquon Barkley's just on another level this season. And I'm sure I'll eat crow on Monday when he doesn't eclipse 100 yards, but that's okay.
Should IU call the NBA coach in the city where you have a lot of fandom?
Sure, I think no Bulls fans would be upset if Billy Donovan is leaving town. I think
he too far removed from college basketball?
He's getting that way, and the joke has kind of been on him because remember he left the Thunder because he didn't want to go through a rebuild. And don't you think he's kind of regretting that decision now, looking at the Thunder with SGA and everything like that? And you're looking at the Bulls squad that is just hemorrhaging talent left and right, that they can't keep anybody and they don't look like they have any sort of direction. So I think Billy Donovan could use a change of scenery. I know the Bulls fans would like to see Billy Donovan get out of town, but yeah, he's been out of the college game now for how long now? So I think the shine has kind of come off of him. Whereas you thought he was leaving Oklahoma City for a big, shiny, big city like Chicago, and it's gone completely the opposite direction than what it was going in Oklahoma City. So if you want Billy Donovan, go right at it. I don't think that's going to draw money. I don't know. Would Hoosier fans want that? You can look at old highlights of him in Florida, but that's a while now. I don't know. I don't think Billy Donovan does it.
Obviously, I feel like the names from Indiana fans are largely around, the dream of a Brad Stevens,
Mm-hmm.
the guy on the visiting sideline coming up tomorrow and Dusty May. Then you get into the homework guys, and by the homework guys, I mean, the people in your legal department have to do some homework on, Chris Beard and Bruce Pearl and, those guys. But it's not a name that I've seen mentioned a whole lot, but I think he's done a great job here at his most recent stop. I know he's got ties to this area, so maybe he wouldn't be ready to move, and maybe he feels like he's got everything he needs there. But, Shaka Smart, I think, has done a really nice job at Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
Would he be someone that you would look into?
I would, because, you should leave no stone unturned, considering you're going to probably, you're going to be getting rid of Mike Woodson soon. So I don't think the whole, we got to get somebody who's an Indiana alum or something like that. I think those days need to be going away in the near future. I've always liked Shaka Smart. I always think he does what he does. He coaches nice with the programs he's at and everything like that. I would choose him over Billy Donovan 10 times out of 10. I can tell you that much. So I don't know what they're thinking out in Bloomington. Maybe Zach Osterman's getting some inklings there. But what are realistic candidates? Because obviously the pie in the sky is Brad Stevens.
I still think it's a very good job.
It is.
I would push back on anyone that says it's not. I understand that, in the last 8 years, you've had 2 NCAA tournament wins. But I still think in a present day of college basketball, you have a full embrace from that athletic department, from the alumni base, into whatever is needed from a resource standpoint to thrive in today's college landscape. Facilities of no issue. I mean, that crowd roars when they cut the deficit to 20.
Yeah.
20. 95% of college basketball programs would dream of that. So I still may, and I know people would push back. The only people that push back and say it's not a good job, they're like, well, the fan base is too crazy. I'd rather have too crazy than not passionate enough.
Right.
Because if I win, I know it's going to be there.
You're never buying a meal again.
And it's just like these last two specifically, in Archie and Mike Woodson's case, they just haven't won at all to satisfy. 2 NCAA tournament wins in 8 years over Wyoming and Kent State.
Who was the guy at Wyoming we had on the show? What was his name? He was like
Reese Monaco.
He was all about.
He saw Trace Jackson Davis and thought I had seen Tiger Woods.
He was very excited to talk about him. Yeah, I remember that. Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's been a situation down in IU where how many current alums have just not even seen winning basketball these days. We're like, wait, my dad and my uncle and everything like that have told me about this glory days of Indiana basketball. I haven't seen it at all. Like, were they even decent when you were there? A little bit, but not really.
If you are a 25 to 30-year-old, Indiana basketball is a middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team.
Yeah.
That's it.
I just don't know what's realistic for them as far as candidates, though. Because, again, Brad Stevens, I feel like unless they somehow eventually get him, like that is always going to be number one for Hoosier fans to land. But, I mean, would Shaka Smart, would a Bruce Pearl do anything for fans? Or are they kind of like those guys have been around long enough?
It always seems like Pearl's wanted this job.
Yeah.
He's
a wild man, too.
He was at Southern Indiana. Yeah, and again, he's one you'd
I
have
love
to,
Bruce Pearl.
He's one you'd have to do some homework on.
Uh-huh.
Nick brings up not Bryce Drew. Wait.
Scott Drew?
Scott, I guess he is saying Bryce Drew. I guess that is a little off the radar. He's at Grand Canyon right now. Yeah, Scott Drew, I think, would probably be the one that Indiana fans would be a little bit more interested in. Did he decline Kentucky and Louisville? I think it was at least Kentucky. It's just when you see like even what Mark Pope has done a little bit at Kentucky, it is just amazing that like Mike Woodson was the hire.
I know.
I mean,
I feel like they're like, well, he coached for the Knicks, and that was like the big thing.
No, I would argue
it
was he put on our jersey 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And great player.
But I feel like the NBA stuff, they're like, look, we got an NBA
He wasn't a good
coach.
NBA coach.
He wasn't a good NBA
we're
coach.
talking Mo Cheeks. We're talking Jim O'Brien record. I mean, can you imagine if your college basketball program of choice hired Jim O'Brien or Mo Cheeks?
I know.
I mean, 40 years removed from college basketball. That is a look. And Notre Dame tried the alumni thing with Charlie Weiss, and it's cute. He knows the fight song. Alumni can be like, oh, isn't it great? We have one of our own. But
he knew all the good restaurants.
No. Like Matt Painter, former player, but he earned his stripes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he coached elsewhere for what, a decade before coming back to West Lafayette. He was a head coach at Southern Illinois. Mark Pope at Kentucky, built Utah Valley a little bit and then went to BYU. I mean, like, that's different. Those resumes to me are very, very different. So, again, I think Scott Dolson has earned the right to make a hire. I think what he did with Kurt Cignetti, and I would argue that he had some people above him that, and maybe Dolson fell into a little bit of the romanticizing, of wanting a player from the Knight era, but yeah, obviously can't go down that path.
So you're putting Billy Donovan, Shaka Smart,
I think
on this short list so far?
I think there's some IU fans that really want Chris Beard.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're going to have to look into that background a whole lot. But I'm just trying to think a little bit outside of the Brad Stevens, Dusty May box.
I know. And unfortunately, that's a big box because that's what all Hoosier fans want is those two guys. Those are top of the order. What
about the dude from Iowa State?
I mean, again, I think you look at everybody.
Otzelberger?
Yeah. You don't have to be, well, if they didn't play for us, we're not going to interview them. No, I think you need to cast a wide net. It's time to get the Indiana basketball program back on track. Like you said, what's it been? How many years since they've made 3 NCAA tournaments?
Since the last time they made 3 straight NCAA tournaments was the final year of Mike Davis into the first 2 years of Kelvin Sampson.
I mean, that's insane.
That is
And they've expanded
insane.
the field since. It's not like they've shrunk it down to 32. No, 68 teams make it.
Yeah, it might be the most pathetic stat of any of them out there. If you missed it last night, no Hall of Fame call for Reggie Wayne out of Vinatieri. We'll explain a little bit more coming up in a few. I probably did a poor job earlier this week in not having Mike Chappell open up a little bit more about the criteria. The criteria for the Hall of Fame has changed. And you will see last night's class only had 3 modern era candidates, or I should say inductees, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get a little bit more into that, and I don't expect to hear Reggie Wayne's name at all in the next probably 3 to 5 years. And I would say we probably should be ready to wait on Adam Vinatieri. Not because I don't think they're Hall of Famers, but we'll explain more coming up here on the other side. It was wild last night in LA. If you stayed up 12:55, 12:56, you needed to give that type of effort. It was necessary. It was worth it. Mark Dykton lead off this morning check down with Lowell Pacers.
Sure. All right, if you stayed up late, we talked about it. The Pacers rewarded you last night with these late West Coast games. This one was worth it, though. A 119-112 win over the Clippers. Pascal Siakam, 33 points, 11 boards. Benedict Mathurin, 25 points. And Tyrese Halliburton getting off his scoring drought, knocked down 14. It looked ugly early. Pacers were down 20 points at the end of the first quarter, but then they flipped the script on the Clippers and put out 42 points of their own in the second quarter, and it was good after then. All of a sudden, they've rattled off 5 of 6 wins, and after the game, Tyrese Halliburton on the win.
I was just digging in, figuring out ways to get stops defensively. I thought we did a good job of just hanging in there. Our second group was really big for us, keeping the game close in the first half, and then we kind of followed it up, went on a big run there in the first half, and then we just had to stick with it. Obviously, after their last game, we knew they would come out, throw a big punch, and that they did, and we just had to figure it out.
Like I said, 5 of 6 wins now, 2-1 on the West Coast trip, wrapping it up tomorrow afternoon against the Los Angeles Lakers. Doesn't sound like Luka Doncic is going to play, though. It sounds like they're more targeting Monday for his debut with the Lakers, but that doesn't change the fact that that game is still on WTHR. It is on ESPN, and it is right here on these airwaves, and we'll bring it to you starting at 3:30.
And, of course, FanDuel as
FanDuel,
well,
of
if
course,
you
yes,
watch
yes.
the normal broadcast. Did you see LeBron last night?
He's ageless, man.
42, 17, and 8 for LeBron. So the Pacers will see him coming up tomorrow. They won in overtime over Golden State. I do want to mention the name of Ben Shepherd. I thought Shepherd was outstanding last night early on in the game. It'll get lost in the shuffle. Siakam, all-star effort. Matherin, one of his better nights of the year. Halliburton makes the plays late, but Shepherd and that second unit helped get you back in the game. And a stat that I think says a lot about the Pacers right now, they haven't lost back-to-back games since Christmas.
That's impressive.
That is a very impressive note.
That's a
here.
recipe for success.
That is indeed that. All right. We'll again talk a little Hall of Fame coming up here in a few. Let's switch over to college basketball tonight from West Lafayette. Matt Painter's boys just got to handle business, and Vegas thinks they will. A 12.5-point favorite over USC. We should note USC's leading scorer, Desmond Claude, he missed their last outing against Northwestern. He's been very good this season. The Xavier transfer, he had 31 and a win at Illinois. So bone bruise for him. So that'll be a status to monitor tonight. USC has won a couple times away from home, so it's not like they've been one of these West Coast teams that can't do anything away from L.A. That is 7 o'clock on Peacock. And again, Indiana and Michigan coming up tomorrow. That is 1 o'clock on CBS from Assembly Hall. The roar for Dusty May will be felt all throughout the 812. Butler Providence, 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Some notable
That's at Hinkle, by the way.
NFL honors. Josh Allen, quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, the MVP. Kevin O'Connell, coach of the Minnesota Vikings, the coach of the year. And then we've talked about it. No Adam Vinatieri, no Reggie Wayne. They get shut out in the class of 2025. It doesn't look like they're making the class of 2026 either. So not good there for the local boys, for the Colts. I don't think it's gonna. Think it's gonna be a little bit for them, unfortunately. And also Marshall Faulk, Hall of Fame running back, going to be the new running backs coach with Deion Sanders out in Colorado.
Boy, Deion got a lot of run last night.
I know. He was out there with Belichick. He was
reading his own book at one point. That's Snoop.
Uh-huh. That was the hot topic joke was what books are everybody reading?
I laughed at Snoop's Belichick joke. We'll play that here coming up in a bit. You said local, one last thing. Again, locally Super Bowl. I always kind of enjoy what are the local angles. Eagles don't have a ton. Obviously, Sirianni coached here. Isaiah Rodgers at corner played here. Paris Campbell is on their roster if you want a little throwback name. Kansas City's got a ton of it. We had Carson Steele on the show earlier this week, obviously from Center Grove. Peyton Hendershot from Tri-West. Drew Tranquil, shout out to Carroll High School up in Fort Wayne. And the man that had the big hit on Josh Allen on that fourth down play, George Karloftis from West Lafayette. So a whole lot.
Can I give you another tie?
Indiana High School flavor.
You'll like this. Andy Heck, Coach Andy
Heck.
Heck.
Andy Heck, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he was
offensive line, right? Or tight end coach, something like that?
Yeah, tight end. And he was on the Notre Dame team when they won the last championship.
Look at this. Kylan.
Yep,
Let's
their
go.
last national championship, 1988, and Heck was their offensive tackle.
Kevin, you should know that.
I take back
Pretty fun.
everything I said about Kylan earlier this week in the Thin Men's. She totally redeemed herself.
Well, I'm disappointed in you that you didn't know that.
Well, I didn't know if we should go on the 10th assistant coach on the team, but
Hey,
You're
we'll
Mr.
take
Notre
the
Dame.
tie.
You're
We'll take it.
Mr. Golden
and it
Dome.
doesn't stop there. They've got Cam Jones, their linebacker, played at IU. He's on their, I think he's on the practice squad. I believe Nick Jones played at Ball State. I mean, Kansas City has got a ton of local flavor. And look at Kylan pulling that. No, I mean, unbelievable.
Andy Heck, offensive line coach. Yep.
You just pulled on
So we
Kevin's
just
heartstrings.
Turn over every rock. That's what we do here
Yeah.
on the Fan Morning Show. Thank you to Kylan Talley
Look at that.
for that. Why didn't Reggie Wayne, Adam Vinatieri get the call? Does it have to do with some voting criteria? We'll explain more on the other side. This is the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. Situation with Mike Woodson and the awkwardness and what today could bring, I guess. I would almost think a statement's got to come at some point today from the university. Zach Osterman going to join us. You said 9:05, Mark.
9:05, yeah.
So we'll do that
After the school bus gets his kid.
very understandably.
Mhm.
Girls sectionals around the state of Indiana tonight, so hopefully weather will cooperate on that end. So I know busy weekend, I should say, from a girls sectional standpoint. Again, Mark, among the news items from last night around 10 o'clock, we got word that there will be no Hall of Fame calls to either of the Colts, Reggie Wayne, Adam Vinatieri. I thought Vinatieri, and I still think Vinatieri was deserving of a first ballot Hall of Famer. If you look into Mike Chappell's piece, he mentioned that Vinatieri was about as close as you could get. Reggie Wayne was not.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I apologize. I probably should have done a better job when we had Chappell on Tuesday, Mark, of this, but we're used to the older format of Hall of Fame voting. 15 finalists. You get in the room, you debate for 8 hours, you vote that group down to 10, and then you vote that group down to 5, and boom, here's your 5-person class. That's what we've grown accustomed to here over really, I would say, a decently long time. The criteria changed for this year, though, in that, and I actually think it might have been Deion Sanders that kind of sparked some of this, felt like we were letting in too many non-Hall of Famers, if you will.
The Hall of Very Good is what it was becoming.
Thank you. That's probably a good way to put it. I can kind of see where Deion was going with that, in that, some years you just don't have a great class.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel the need to force 5 in? Now, I'd argue next year's class, you need more than 5 to appease, the Adrian Peterson, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Big Ben, Frank Gore, Jason Witten. The list goes on. Phillip Rivers. The list goes on and on. So now the criteria is this. 15 becomes 10 becomes 7. And then when you get to 7, everyone in the room votes, but only for 5.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get in, you need an 80% vote. So again, 7 on the ballot. You can only vote for 5. I think there's like 50-some voters. And the 80% threshold is what gets in. So you only had 3 last night. Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, I thought very deserving, especially Gates. Eric Allen, no. Stop it.
Yeah, that one confused me.
I think it was like 2 All-Pros maybe, and they were both second teams. I didn't, that one screamed he's been on the ballot for a while, and that's why we're putting him in. And it sounded like, based off what Chap said, Vinatieri was like close to that 80% vote, about as close as you could get.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Luke Kuechly just missed it. I think Torrey Holt was pretty close. Eli Manning, not close. Reggie Wayne, not close. So, again, the criteria's changed. We aren't going to get your normal 5-man classes. And given the names that I just mentioned for 2026, Reggie Wayne, and the fact that Torrey Holt's above him, he's not getting that call anytime soon.
Nope.
And I would argue Adam Vinatieri is probably not going to get it next year either.
Nope, doesn't look like it. So, yeah, I've already kind of scratched off the class of 2026 as far as Colts who will get in fodder, because I just don't think, it'd be a miracle for either of them to get in, quite frankly, next year, right? Like, there's no way. So
it would. That's probably a good way to put it. Are you good with this, the new voting process? Do you think that should be 5 at a bare minimum every year, or just a 5-person class every year?
So I'm going to go off the beaten path a little bit. Like, I don't mind the kind of fluctuating classes. I think that's fine. Do you remember, like, a few years ago, the Academy Awards were trying to bump up, like, their ratings and everything like that, because it used to be, like, five movies got up for Best Picture, and then it was kind of like these, like, indie movies, and everybody's like, no one's seen these. Like, what are these movies and everything like that? So they want to get some blockbusters in, so they expanded so you can get up to 10 or something like that. I'm fine with the way that they've kind of renegotiated the Hall of Fame class like situation, but like next year's, I would say, like you said, necessitates more than 5 getting in. So can you fluctuate a little? Can you expand like up to 7? Can we go down to 3? Like I don't think there needs to be a set number for either. Whoever gets the 80% threshold, why are you capping it? We can only vote for 5. If there's more than 5 that deserve 80% voting, you expand it to that. Sometimes some classes are going to be stronger than others. As we said, see 2025 versus 2026. That's obviously next year is a much more loaded class. You should be able to allow more than just 5 in. Expand it a little more.
The Vinatieri thing confuses me. He's unquestionably the best kicker in NFL history.
It's just this position, I think.
Unquestionably the clutchest kicker player, however you want to look at it, in NFL history. If he played any other position, he'd be a first balloter.
Exactly. Well, that was
And he had
that was my
longevity.
argument with.
I mean, he played what, 24 years in the league.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he had the longevity, he had the clutch kicks, he had the championships and all that stuff. That was the same issue I had with Devin Hester not getting in right away because like he literally changed the game for his position. And how many players can say that they literally changed the rules because of the way he played the game? So he had to wait a few years. Vinatieri sounds like he's gonna have to wait a few years. He's at least waiting till 2027, I would say at this point. And Reggie Wayne, I don't know when he's getting in. I kind of agree with Rake. He might have to go the Veterans Committee route, which seems insane for Reggie
and that's
Wayne.
what
But again,
Sterling Sharp. That's how he got in last night.
Uh-huh.
And hasn't played in the league for what, 20-some years?
I know. Time flies because Sterling Sharp, I feel like, was in the league not that long ago. And
Again, Sterling is not Shannon for those that were confused a little bit on that.
Yeah, no, there is a difference. But yeah, I would hate that Reggie Wayne would have to go that route. But it might be going that way, unfortunately. I think we obviously have a very high regard for Reggie Wayne. And like Chappa said earlier this week, it doesn't seem that that's reflecting in the voting room. Not at all. Like, it seems like he's not even close to getting that 80% threshold. So
and I have
that's
bigger
disappointing
gripe for Vinatieri. I think Wayne is a Hall of Famer, but I guess I'm a bit resigned to like he's had to wait 6 years. He's still not above Torrey Holt. Now Larry Fitzgerald comes onto the ballot next year. He certainly isn't above him. So you're going to continue to, have to wait a little bit more and more. Again, coming up 9 o'clock, we'll talk with Zach Osterman, the latest down in Bloomington. It is quite the interesting, and I'd argue a bit of a messy situation, exactly how this is going to end for Mike Woodson and the program where he played back 40 years ago. So we'll await anything from Indiana today. Again, they've got Michigan coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Jason Hammer will talk a little bit more Super Bowl action with him. I still like my penalty bet of my illegal formation will be called first.
Yeah, that's a solid one. I think I'm still leaning towards holding. I think I'm still leaning towards holding only because that seems to be a pretty easy one that they call regularly. So I would lean towards holding, but I totally respect you taking a little bit of a leap for that one.
It's an annual one I take every year. Total players to throw a pass.
What is it, over 1.5? Is that what it is?
2.5.
2.5, I'm sorry, yeah.
Take the over.
Yeah.
You got to, first off, if we have a quarterback injury, obviously, we'll get the over there. But you just need one. Running back pass, you double pass to the wide receiver. The A.D. Mitchell to Anthony Richardson, I'm sure, is a play a lot of people have wanted to put in their playbook after seeing the success of that. So
how about a Jalen Hurst toss to Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley throws it to Dallas Goedert? How about that?
I think a few years ago I took the over on that, and Deebo Samuel did that, and all of a sudden no one was open, so Deebo ran out of bounds. So technically it didn't go down as a pass.
Well, damn. No, I think especially with these two offenses, I'd be stunned if we don't get someone else throwing the ball besides Mahomes and Hurts. We'll see, though. I like that one, though. I'm going to try to find that one on my
And kind of off of that,
apps.
You can go any quarterback or offensive lineman to catch a pass. Now, those odds are a little bit longer. 10 to win 160, though. I mean, that's an intriguing one
not bad
to me. So if you believe in that overall thinking there, that's a little double whammy you could go with.
Double down. You have any other ones that you haven't thrown our way yet this week?
How about Mahomes and Hurts each to score a rushing touchdown?
Okay.
Do you like that one?
Yeah, I bet on Mahomes. I think I made him as the first.
That's
touchdown.
10 to win 25. So it's kind of small odds,
I
but
think 2 years ago I had Mahomes as the first touchdown scorer of the game, and that one hit, and that was like plus 700. So that was a nice little payday for me. So yeah, I Hurts is definitely going to get a couple tush push options at the goal line, or he might just roll out at some point and run for himself. Mahomes is a little more conservative with the running game, but I could totally see him scoring as well. So yeah, what are the odds on that one again?
Plus 225, so
yeah,
10 to win
like
25. Again, you need both. Hurts to me seems to be kind of borderline a lock. Mahomes would be the one where you have a little bit more of a question on it. I always am kind of, when you get near the goal line, I'm always curious, like, do you throw a random tight end a ball?
The third guy or something?
Yeah, can you get real creative there with that?
Yeah, or they'll have the offensive tackle report as eligible and everything like that.
Yeah. Now again, that's a little bit more outside of the box thinking, but
no, I like that one though too. I'm gonna have to write these down and look them up on ahead of Sunday.
We'll get more into this with Jason Hammer coming up in a bit. All right, on the other side, it was a wild one last night for the Pacers. It was a wild day, certainly just having to wait for the NBA trade deadline. One small move for the Pacers last night. They lost one of their more indispensable players early in the game. They're down 20 at the end of the first, and yet if you woke up at 2 a.m. and looked at your phone, you thought, how the hell did that happen? We'll explain more coming up on the other side. This is the Fan Morning Show. Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton, Kylan Talley rounding out the week.
my theme on Monday when I come in after eating like a pig on Super Bowl Sunday. Like, I'm not okay, but I'm going to be all right.
Well, how about the guy yesterday called in for the pop quiz and said that him and his buddy for every game, or no, was it the pop quiz? Maybe he just called in randomly. Said that every game during the Colts Super Bowl run, him and his buddy
chili and beer.
made a pot of chili, and not just beer, they split a case of beer.
Yeah.
What do you say, Coors Light bottles?
I got secondhand indigestion with that call.
What an effort.
I know.
I told him if the Colts asked him to do that again and it meant the Colts would win again, would he do it? And he said no questions asked.
That's dedication.
That's
Holmes.
heart.
Yeah, I couldn't do that anymore.
Sign the AFC finalist banner with Andrew Luck.
I was just like, I was just dreaming of a bottle of Pepto-Bismol with that chili and beer, because that is a lot of that. You're bloated after that. That's a rough situation.
Jelly Roll was rocking his Jeffrey Simmons jersey on stage last night. NFL honors. I did laugh. I didn't laugh very often last night, to be honest with you. I thought it was a hair awkward for the most part, but I did laugh at Snoop going a little Belichick girlfriend joke. Did you catch this?
That was a good one.
Here was Snoop Dogg, who was the host last night, taking a little shot, and they did pan to Bill Belichick and is she 24, is that right?
Something like that.
24, Jordan Hudson.
24-year-old girlfriend.
Man.
Because I've been a football fan for a long, long time. I mean, I remember back when the Cowboys was good. I remember back when the Chiefs was bad. And I remember, what was it? Bill Belichick's girlfriend wasn't even born yet.
Bill rocking all the Super Bowl rings on his hands, too.
And she rocked one of them, right?
Uh-huh. Yep. Well, have fun in North Carolina.
I did laugh at that. That was pretty. When they panned to Belichick, for a split second, I'm like, who is that next to him? I had forgotten that he had the girlfriend that's,
Yeah.
pretty much the age of anybody he's
Thought it was his
recruiting
wet
right
nurse
now.
or something like that.
Yeah, I guess I had no idea who she was. So, again, NFL honors last night. Very close MVP vote. Josh Allen, 27-23. The vote discrepancy there between him and Lamar Jackson. Kevin O'Connell over Dan Campbell. The other item of note from last night, it was a wild Pacer game out in L.A. There were so many layers to it, Mark. I mean, first off, Pacers get blitzed in the first quarter.
Oh.
They're down 42-22 at the end of one. The Clippers hit 10 threes in the first quarter. Miles Turner leaves the game with what looked to be a concussion midway through the first quarter.
They ruled it a leg injury at some point, and I'm like, that can't be, can it?
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Miles Turner leaves the game with a leg injury. I'm like, I don't think that was a leg injury.
Boy, for people complaining about how the NFL handles
I know.
that, I thought for sure it was a concussion. And then the second quarter totally flips to where the Pacers have the lead at halftime. You're down 20-1. Your second unit, Ben Shepherd, was outstanding. Spearheads a huge comeback. Siakam was an all-star all night long. Matherin had one of his best games of the year.
Thomas Bryant giving you shades of Andrew Bynum. 12 points, 10 rebounds.
Bryant had some nice moments. And again, when Turner leaves, it's a reminder of we'll get into the James Wiseman trade from yesterday of man, you get real thin up front real quick.
Real quick.
And they went small with Obi Toppin for long stretches. Enrique Freeman wasn't dressed for this game. And then Halliburton. There was a stretch there in the first half, Mark, where he didn't score in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would go back to Tuesday's game in Portland, you had gone 6 straight quarters without a Tyrese Halliburton point. And it had started to get to the level where the visible frustration was there. And he's a pretty emotional player on the floor. And I was watching him last night being like, oh, that looks like the Halliburton we saw in November.
Yeah.
Where he was struggling and he was showing it.
Trying to find a shot and just having no answers for
His
it.
first bucket was him and Matherin on a breakaway, and he took it. And I would say normally he hands that to Matherin 9 out of 10 times because he knows how egocentric Matherin is. He knows that means more to Matherin than it means to him. But he knew that he needed it so badly. He's the one that had to finish that off.
Got to be selfish sometimes.
And he dunked it. But the Pacers were down. They got a friendly roll on a Siakam 3. I think they were down 5 with 3 and change to go. Siakam gets a friendly roll. Ty Lue takes a timeout. And so now they're down 2. And again, Halliburton still hadn't scored much all game and hadn't really done a whole lot. Quinn Buckner was really frustrated with him at one point. He got to that little, floater in the lane, 4 feet away from the basket, and instead decided to throw it out for a Siakam kind of challenge jumper there. So you were getting into this, is he being too passive? Is he not being passive, et cetera, et cetera. Then he hits a step-back 3 to take the lead. And, you just felt like that calmed him down so much. He had a big layup on the very next possession. That gave the Pacers stretch their lead a little bit. And it was such a critical, I think, just 2-3 minute stretch. First off, it's a $200 million guy with the game on the line. But boy, did he need that.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 straight quarters without scoring.
I know. And that's not typical for a lot of players, especially like max players and everything like that. So you could see that he's like, I need this shot. So he just threw it down. I was like, please, for the love of God, when we threw that down. The worst thing that could happen is it ricochets off the back. You know, you're finally trying to get off the schneid, and then you're like, oh no. But he threw it down, got it done. And it's one of those things where, too, he's like, I feel like we had the same conversation when they were in the playoffs, too, where he was being a little more passive, where he wasn't really showing up on the scoring sheet like you thought he would. So I don't know if he's reverting back to something or if it's just a kind of a weird road trip situation, but you're hoping he's gotten over the hump now a little bit. He's kind of found his stroke again. So we'll see, I guess, tomorrow heading into the Lakers game. But it was good to see him rebound because it was looking rough these last few games.
Well, certainly. And again, they needed it. They needed it for the win. If you look back, they're 3-1 the last 4. I'd argue they largely haven't played very well in these 4 games, yet, here they are, 29-21 at game number 50 of the year. We mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show. It sounds like no Luka for tomorrow. JJ Redick said probably more Monday night. I think they've got the Jazz twice next week before the All-Star break. So, again, that's 4 o'clock on the variety of outlets. ESPN will still have it. And then WTHR here locally, it's one of their 5 games. And, of course, FanDuel. Just one trade yesterday for the Pacers, and James Wiseman, who was out for the year with the torn Achilles, he was moved. And I think, not to get overly complicated, they did this to open up a roster spot and a little bit of financial flexibility.
That's what it seems like. I mean, for a while, people were like, what did we get for James Wiseman? Because it just said James Wiseman and cash headed to Toronto and not really anything else. And then it came out later that, it's like a top 55 protected second-round pick for 2026. So clearly some cap flexibility, not a ton, obviously, but enough that, they felt comfortable moving on from James Wiseman and everything like that. So is that setting up for maybe some decisions come the summer? Maybe, but it was a minor move that, not overly surprising.
Yeah, I don't think this helps them out financially with Turner and the luxury tax.
No.
I think it helps them out a little bit of like, okay, if we need a third center, which last night was a reminder of like, you probably do.
Yep.
Maybe they convert Enrique Freeman. I'd probably like to see them do a little bit more than that. I know Freeman's had, he's a great story, but he's also a 6'7" dude trying to play center in the NBA.
Yeah.
So, when Turner was lost last night, midway through the first quarter, you were a bit in scramble mode. How about Rick Carlisle opting to go away from the block last night in the second half? Did you catch that?
I did not.
So the Clippers have got this crazy arena.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Ballmer their owner wanted like a student section?
Yeah.
The wall or the block, I kind of forget what they call it.
The wall, I think,
and
is what it's called.
Carlisle opted to, I guess you can pick, I didn't realize this in the NBA. The visiting team can pick like which side of the floor you're on to start the game, and obviously which side of the floor you go for the second half. And he wanted his team away from the wall in the second half.
Have they gotten good reviews from that? Like, I remember that was kind of like they were putting out videos ahead of the stadium opening, and everybody's like, this is cool.
Halliburton was raving about it after the game. He called it the best arena in the NBA.
Huh. Interesting.
I mean, it looks cool. It's got that circular jumbotron, kind of like the Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta.
Yeah, looks like it's a cool time. I just hadn't heard if it lived up to the hype that was leading up to it.
I was kind of hoping they would show a few more shots of like the actual crowd. Like, are they really like, are they a student section? Are they like standing? I mean, I guess I didn't really hear them maybe super vocal, or it's sounding like some, Cameron Indoor on a Saturday night against North Carolina or anything like that. But nonetheless, Pacers get it done. 119-112, one of the wilder games of the season. Again, 3 left until the All-Star break. Lakers, 4 o'clock Saturday. They'll go Knicks and Wizards Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and then it's time for the All-Star break.
I think they could use it. They could get a little rested up and everything like that. Do you think Turner plays tomorrow, or would they give him a night off?
Well, I
mean, if he's not concussed, you would think he'd play.
It looked, based off how it looked, I would assume he's going to miss another game, but, he was tweeting about it.
Yeah, which you would think is a no-no. If you're concussed, you're not usually on your phone or anything like that.
He had a little joke of a picture of him and Benedict Mathurin. Again, Mathurin inadvertently hit him trying to play defense, which, you're just happy Matherin's trying to play defense. that caught Turner. He put their faces on a couple of UFC characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he went with.
Yeah. He's good at Twitter. That's for sure. I liked his Survivor as well after he survived yet another NBA trade deadline. So that was good to see, too.
Every time I think of that Survivor dude, Jeff Probst, right? That's his name?
Yeah, that's the host, yeah.
I think of the dude who coached, did you ever watch that Hoover show on MTV? The Hoover, Alabama
No.
team?
No.
God, what was that called? Two-A-Days, maybe? I feel like that coach was named Probst as well.
I have no idea. That was on MTV?
I'm shocked you didn't watch that.
It was on MTV? I was
Yeah.
watching like the Osbournes and Jackass and the Tom Green show.
That
That one must have
right
slipped
up
through
your
the
alley.
cracks.
Yeah, he coached Hoover for a while.
Okay. I'll have to look it up. Maybe I'm just forgetting it, but it doesn't ring a bell.
Shout out to my brother-in-law, Ross Lubbers, and a Survivor TV show, Survivor League.
What's worse, that or being in like a Bachelor Survivor League? Because people do that too. Because their wives and girlfriends suck them into watching The Bachelor, and they have some like gambling. Like I like Boone. He's my pick. To
I think
get
it's the
final
Survivor
rose.
one that's worse. At least Bachelor, you're rooting for love.
Yeah. Is that what you're rooting for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly. What else, Mark? You want heartbreak? You want people crying?
Yeah,
And
probably. If you have the guy you don't want to win. I've never gotten in The Bachelor, never watched the second, and I watched like the first 2 seasons of Survivor. I don't really watch too much reality TV. Ashley has avoided like the Real Housewives stuff and everything like that, and I think any of that junk she does watch, she watches it when I'm not around, which is fine by me.
Maddie's happy because White Lotus is coming back.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good show. That comes out in a couple weeks, I think. So that's a solid one.
Yeah, that one and Love Island, which,
Oh, no, thank you.
boy, you want to talk about trash.
No, thank you. Don't get into that one either.
This isn't reality TV, but Ted Lasso got greenlit to come back for another season.
Really?
Let's go.
I'm pretty
Same
excited.
characters?
Yeah, Jason Sudeikis will be coming back. I don't know about the rest of them, but
Okay.
at least he's back.
That is outstanding.
I'm kind of hyped.
That is great to hear. Boy, that is awesome news on that end. All right, coming up in a few, Zach Osterman. Certainly a lot of drama down in Bloomington. The latest on that, I would assume we get some clarification today. I guess I'd probably say that. I'm a little bit more hopeful. Again, the latest yesterday, various reporting from local and national college basketball voices, Indiana Mike Woodson, and discussions about the coach's wishes to step away at the end of the 24-25 season. But it sounds like Woodson is expected to coach the rest of the year, but again, unlikely to return next year. What exactly does all that mean? Zach Osterman from the Star, he's going to join us next.
Fan Morning Show. Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton, Kylan Talley on the ones and twos on a Friday before the Super Bowl. We have Zach Osterman of the Indy Star joining us in about 5 minutes to discuss this Mike Woodson situation. But Kevin, do we have a new public enemy number one in the city of Indianapolis?
If we did a poll in our market, who are you cheering for, Chiefs or Eagles, what do you think it would be?
I would say Eagles because Chiefs are in the AFC.
Like overwhelming?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that's probably where I would go. I don't know if we're trying to change the ways, but former defensive coordinator of the Colts, ironically, Vic Fangio, with an insulting comment towards our culinary side of things here. The Eagles did one of these videos, and you kind of see it, asking these coaches or, players, whatever, a little bit off-topic questions. And, again, Vic is a longtime coach around the college and NFL ranks, and he was asked about his favorite food stops.
What has been the best and worst food towns in your coaching career? Well, Philly's one of the best. San Francisco and Chicago are one of the best. Indianapolis is one of the worst.
What about Indy's food sucks?
Just too bland.
Well, screw him.
I know. Where the hell come from?
I mean,
Vic?
come on.
I know. Yeah, I heard that the other day, and I'm like, I know Super Bowl media, like you get pulled in a million different directions as a coach or player. But what the hell? What did Indianapolis do to Vic Fangio?
Yeah, obviously we've got, certainly known for the steakhouses around town, but Iozas.
So what does he do like come combine
Mama
time?
Carola's. You
Where's
want to
he
go
go?
a little bit more, Mexican side of things. We certainly can satisfy you there. I
Go to
think
Big Lug.
for personally, I think livery's outstanding. You want variety in general? Just head up to the garage. It's glorified city market up there.
Got seafood, pizza, beer. What more do you need?
So are we? Does that change the thinking now? We hate Vic Fangio and we're cheering for the Chiefs.
Well, I just need to hear his explanation. Like, what about it is bland? Where have you gone that it's been bland? What have you not explored? I assume Vic Fangio, he's not a small fella. He's had his portions of food before.
All right, let's not take shots below the belt here. Or maybe above the belt.
Yeah, hey, hold on now. If he's taking shots at the city, I think I'm allowed to ask some questions here.
Now,
he's been at the Combine a million times.
Yeah,
he's
you
had
bring
to
up
have
a
gone
great
out
point about the
places.
Combine because, he was Colts defensive coordinator from 99 to 01. So that's when he was here. And ironically, I don't know if people recall this, the Jim Mora rant and the whole Jim Mora kind of saga of that 01 season. Mora thought that the Colts' issues defensively were personnel and not scheme. Bill Polian thought they needed a simpler scheme. And so Mora refused to fire Fangio, and Polian said, all right, well, then you're gone. So boom. So maybe there's still some bitterness from that. Not bitterness in his food necessarily, but maybe that's where he's bitter.
Maybe. But that's a long grudge to hold.
Wouldn't you like to be the Colts defensive coordinator with Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be
bad.
Pretty good gig, right?
You would think so. But Vic Fangio's had a hell of a career. Everywhere he goes, he's always got all of a sudden the great defensive, they're at the top of the defensive rankings and everything like that. But there has to be something. I mean, is it just, that's a long grudge to hold. And to say the food sucks, that's got nothing to do with the.
I mean, he's got like 30 stops on his head coaching resume, and we're the one?
I know. If you go through his resume, I guarantee you that Indianapolis cannot be the worst in the food department. There's no way. And that's just me just defending the town I live in. That's, I mean, come on.
I'm not here acting like we're Emeril Lagasse at every place we stop, but come on now.
I mean, he was with the Houston Texans from 2002 to 2005. I've been to Houston. Houston outside of Whataburger is nothing special. That city is wide. There's not much there. There's not a bunch of good food.
That city's
Get out
wide.
of here. Like, okay, you've been to New Orleans. I get it. You've been to Philly. Fine. Understand that. That's fine. But you're telling me that Houston has better food than Indianapolis? I'm sorry, Vic. I love you. I can't go there.
We'll do some Super Bowl bets, props with the great Jason Hammer. He's going to join us coming up at 9:30. But certainly it was a busy day for this man yesterday. It was a late night during halftime of the Pacer game. I decided to dial up little Zach Osterman on YouTube. He got me through halftime last night.
Look at you.
Of the Pacer game. I enjoyed the hockey jersey Zach Osterman was rocking in that video. We appreciate his time here on this Friday morning. Zach, good morning to you.
Hey, how we doing?
We are good. Let's start here. What is the latest, and are we awaiting something from Indiana today on this awkwardness on the Mike Woodson messaging of what the rest of this season will look like for him and beyond?
Yeah, so, I mean, the latest is basically just, these sort of ongoing discussions, and I think, I'll give my brethren in the media some credit. Everybody's reported it a little bit differently, but I think everyone has kind of all sort of circled the same idea, which is there sort of been ongoing discussions about Mike Woodson's long-term future with Indiana, what that looks like, whether there is sort of I don't know if the word would be mutually agreed upon, but some sort of kind of at least agreed upon sort of end date in terms of maybe, a retirement or however you want to phrase it. I mean, I don't want to put words in people's mouth. But as of kind of last night, that remained unresolved. So far as I know today, it remains unresolved. Sorry, my dog is fighting to get a toy out of the bin. He's very sweet, but not always very smart.
Well, it's Friday. I don't blame him.
Well, he was just making a big banging noise. I don't know if y'all could hear him. What I would say is, these sorts of things obviously can resolve themselves pretty quickly if everyone just kind of comes to an agreement that everyone is satisfied with. But so far as I know, kind of all of this remains ongoing. And as you said, it's that there is an inherent awkwardness to it, kind of as long as it's sort of out there dangling in the wind.
Why now, Zach? I don't think, we've talked about it on this show for the last couple of weeks now. The awkward nature to what the environment will be tomorrow inside of Assembly Hall, I think, is pretty obvious with Dusty May in the building. Obviously, Indiana got blitzed early on Tuesday nights. They've lost 6 of 7. So I think there's evidence on the floor for why now. And then you look at the game tomorrow, and, that's a bit of the elephant in the room. So is there any, February 7th or February 6th, why do you think it kind of reached this boiling point level here with, 9 or 10 games left?
Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily a causal relationship between, for example, the game tomorrow and all of this coming to, seeming to come to a head. And again, as long as it's kind of unresolved, it's just kind of floating out there, but seeming to come to a head at the end of this week. I think you can sort of simultaneously acknowledge that, all the reasons why Saturday was and might still be, kind of awkward for Indiana. But also acknowledge that, any sort of discussion or decision or agreement or, however you want to frame it around the sort of the direction of your basketball program, who your head coach is, what the long-term, the medium to long-term outlook is. That's not just going to be informed by, it's going to be awkward Saturday. Let's get out ahead of this now. I think can that be part of it? I guess, sure. But I think this is much more of kind of a discussion of, Indiana basketball is on a certain trajectory that I think everyone broadly agrees, needs to change. How do we get that to change? And what needs to maybe kind of be tweaked or changed in response to that? And, this is kind of where I would, and I know people are focused on the micro right now. This is also, though, where I'd zoom out big picture and I'd point out, listen, a lot has changed for Indiana in the context of being a member of the Big Ten in the last 3 years with, a whole bunch of new schools the new TV deal, more stuff on streaming, more money, but also more demands. Indiana has obviously, just like everyone else, got to clear a space for revenue sharing, which is coming next year. I think that's probably, I suspect 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to look at rev share and we're going to see some pretty dramatic impacts on college basketball from that and how basically the big schools decide to spread their revenue sharing pie between not just revenue sports and non-revenue sports, but frankly between football and men's and women's basketball. And I think Indiana is going to have a pretty distinct place in that conversation as one of the schools that's likeliest to sort of prioritize from a financial perspective men's basketball in the revenue sharing era. The point is there's kind of a lot to balance here, and I think Indiana's got to feel like there is a sort of clear and confident direction that the program is pointed in as it sort of, sails into this new world. And so that's why I say, and I don't mean to zoom out to 10,000 feet just to talk about something 10 feet away, but that's why I say I don't think this is just a reaction to Dusty May in Michigan, or even maybe just a reaction to, the Wisconsin game or a 3-game losing streak or whatever it is. I think is it 3 now? It's 4 now. There's the micro, yes, but there is also kind of a concern for and certainly I think a vision of the bigger picture that Indiana's balancing here too.
Zach Osterman of the Indianapolis Star joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Zach, how does this work out with Mike Woodson? Like, this isn't going to be a firing situation, I wouldn't think, but is this more of like a mutual parting of the ways press release at some point? Is this a buyout? How do you see this working itself out when it eventually comes to an end?
No, I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know at this point, and that's where I will kind of freely sort of admit my, sort of my ignorance of the likeliest outcome here, because I don't want to put words in people's mouths. I don't love speculating. I think, I reported this yesterday. I don't think this is, the number is not new news, but Mike Woodson's buyout, were he to be let go at the end of this season, is $8.4 million. If this was some sort of mutually agreed upon process, whether it was kind of a, coach out the season and retire or whatever, however that is, I think that number would probably be a good starting point. Because I do think Indiana would be willing to, kind of provide, some sort of financial recompense in the event that there was kind of, again, something more mutually agreed upon between Mike Woodson and the university. But I don't, I think there's probably, the best way to say it right now is I think there's probably still a lot of outcomes kind of on the table. And that is, as much as anything else, what I think is kind of contributing to this awkwardness, or this not, I don't say awkwardness, but this just sort of like almost kind of suspended silence right now of everyone just sort of waiting to see what the next move is. Because I think there's a possibility that there could be, a number of different potential next moves. That's why it's just kind of, it feels like everyone's just going to kind of dangle in it a little bit today until something happens, something said, some sort of official statement, whatever. I do think Indiana probably has to address this at some point. Even if just to say, nothing to report here, moving forward as scheduled, Michigan 1:00 Saturday. But this, kind of floating around in the ether the way that it has for about the last 24 hours or so, and I guess continuing on through today, unless or until we get some kind of resolution. I think at some point, Indiana's got to at least kind of come out and lead with a voice on this. I'm not sure exactly what you say or who says it, but, I think that the worst thing here is to let the silence persist all the way into tip-off tomorrow, but we'll see.
All right, Zach, you look at your phone. Scott Dolson is calling you. He's saying, Zach, who would you hire for the next head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers? Who should be on my short list? You are giving him what names?
I mean, listen, first of all, I'd be concerned if he was calling me.
I know.
It's hard to say because, again, I go back to, and this is totally me dodging the question, and I'll freely admit that up front. But I go back to what I was talking about just a minute ago. The landscape has changed so much, and I think there are ways in which this job is probably more challenging than it's been in a long time. I think it, you can see each coach, I think, is just because of and I saw this like growing up in the South with Alabama football when I was a kid. The further you get away from that success, it's like each coach gets a little bit less time, a little bit less patience, a little bit less leash. There's a little bit more sort of, a basically kind of rush to demand success because you just kind of don't get to fully reset the clock every single time you make a change. On the other hand, I do think, and I'm not going to predict specific schools or coaches, but I do think that people are going to be surprised in a few months here when they find out how much some schools that are good at basketball right now, and this is not just in the Big Ten, I'm talking nationally, wind up kind of deprioritizing basketball when it comes to revenue sharing. And Indiana is not going to be one of those. It's still going to obviously put a lot of money into football, both because of Kurt Cignetti's success and also just because Indiana understands as a member of the Big Ten, it's got to continue to be competitive in football. But it is going to prioritize men's basketball financially at a level that most of its peers, I suspect, will not. And so I think that in that way, the job is going to be more appealing than it's probably been in a very long time, because there's going to be more direct access to the kinds of resources that can build you a really competitive team really quickly. So does that look like a sitting head coach in a Power 5 job? Of course, I'm sure there are people that will cast their eye at one or two employees of current NBA franchises, one of whom's coaching right now, one of whom isn't. You know, I would even have, and I don't know if this would get traction with Indiana fans or not, but I would even, if I was Scott Dolson, take a look at somebody like Ben McCollum at Drake, who's only been at Drake for a year. They're doing really, really well, obviously, and he inherited a program that was having some success. But he spent about 15 years at the Division II level and won 4 national titles down there, and it's kind of come up to Division I, up over in the Valley, and really not missed a beat. And so if you're Scott Dolson, then maybe you're looking for the quote-unquote kind of Kurt Cignetti hire, but for college basketball, maybe it's something like that. And the last thing I would say here, too, is, and I wrote this last season when Kentucky hired Mark Pope, when these jobs come open, we tend to sort of say, well, what are the home runs? You know, what are the absolute sort of grand slam hires that just are like sort of seismic shifts in what everybody expects from a program in college basketball. The reality is, historically, these kinds of programs don't hire that coach very often. You know, obviously, Cal went from Memphis to Kentucky. To a certain extent, Bill Self from Illinois to Kansas probably fits. But if you think back, I mean, Roy Williams was an assistant at North Carolina when he got the Kansas job. Hubert Davis and John Shire obviously inherited those jobs, from moving up from assistant coaching roles. Mark Pope to BYU. I mean, if you want to go back far enough, Tom Izzo as an assistant, Gene Keady from Western Kentucky, Bob Knight from Army, Judd Heathcote from Montana State. Like it's the much more well-worn, and I think it is fair to say successful path tends to be hiring a coach that is sort of graduating into being really, really good, and then letting that coach basically become great in a program like this. Historically speaking, that is the road more often traveled. And so I'm not saying Indiana shouldn't call whoever, fill in the blank, Brad Stevens, Bruce Pearl, Scott Drew, Billy Donovan, I don't know, whatever. But I do think it is worth pointing out, as and when this job comes open, and I say that just because, as we discussed at the top, there's no real resolution to this yet, but as and when, if that ultimately winds up in the end game here, history tells us the more successful play tends to be hiring somebody like a Ben McCollum and sort of saying, come basically grow into greatness in a job like this. So we'll see.
Zach, we really appreciate the time. I want to end with this. I guess I got one small one and then a little bit bigger. One, do you expect anything announcement-wise from Indiana today?
At this point, I kind of expect anything, or I'm prepared for anything. I think the moment there's an announcement, Indiana probably needs to get, the moment there's something to say, I think Indiana needs to say it. And that sounds simplistic, but there's just so much kind of dangling out there at this point that is very kind of, uncertain. And obviously there are, I don't know that it's an exaggeration to say millions of eyeballs on this right now. So I think the moment there is something to say, Indiana, needs to say it. And therefore I would, I don't know that Indiana will, but I would be ready at virtually any point for Indiana to, just because I think if it gets to that point, Indiana needs to kind of be as far out in front of this as it can be.
And then to summarize the tie-up or the struggle, if you will, whether you fire him or he resigns. Is that, to put it simply, is that where we're at and the financial legalities that play off of that?
I'm not sure it's quite that simple. I think some, like, the best way I can put it, because there's some stuff that, like, believe me, if I could get it just a little bit more confirmable, you'd probably read about it in my newspaper. I think the best way to put it is there are probably some outcomes here that are going to be easier to reach than others, if that makes sense. And this is, again, forgive me for being cagey. I'm just trying to do this the way a beat writer would. I think that if, there are certain outcomes that I think, broadly speaking, if everyone comes to the proverbial table and agrees to that, then it's probably a pretty open and shut deal, statement, maybe press availability, something like that, blah, blah, blah. And everybody just sort of holds hands and moves forward together. I think there are some outcomes here that would probably come with a little bit more complication and might not be quite as sort of cut and dry. And so that's probably, as much as anything else, why I think a lot of this is still just kind of unresolved at this point. But again, as I said at the top, like, all it takes is, for one yes, for one go ahead or whatever, and it can all get resolved pretty quickly. So it's going to be one of those things that I think is maybe going to feel like it's kind of like everyone's waiting for it, and yet it still sort of comes out of nowhere. I wouldn't be shocked if it's something like that, just because, at a certain point, it may just need a thumbs up from somewhere, and then it's all a go.
Zach, great work yesterday. Great work late last night. We appreciate you making time for us here on this Friday morning. I know it'll probably be a busy Friday. And then tomorrow, 1 o'clock inside of the hall, it is Indiana against Michigan, with certainly a coach that everybody will be looking forward to hearing his name announced by Jeremy Gray. Thank you, Zach.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Zach Osterman right there, Payless Liquors hotline. Again, it is astonishing to me the number of your 0-10 against ranked teams the last 2 years and the margins, Mark. I mean, 0-10 speaks for itself.
Yep.
I mean, that's awful. But the margins, 12, 5, 25, 16, 20, 8, 12, 21, 4, and 20.
28 losses by double digits, and they're 0-4 against ranked teams this season by a combined 58 points. Not exactly what you're looking for.
It will be awkward in there coming up tomorrow. All right, let's hit a morning check down here on a Friday before we get to a little bit of Super Bowl bets with Jason Hammer.
Pacers. You were rewarded if you stayed up late to watch the Pacers take on the Clippers. It started off ugly. Pacers rebounded quite nicely, though. Got a 119-112 win over the Los Angeles Clippers. Pascal Siakam led out scores, 33 points, 11 boards. Mathurin with 25. Halliburton with 14. And Kevin has been singing the praises of one Ben Shepherd off the bench all game long.
He was great early on.
It looked grim. Like I said, 20 points down in the first quarter. Then it was like they did a jersey swap, and all of a sudden the Pacers turned the lights on. They scored 42 in the second quarter and never looked back after that. Pacers have won 5 of 6. They're 2-1 on the West Coast trip. They get ready to cap it off against the Lakers tomorrow afternoon. If you're looking for that game, it's all over the place. It's on the FanDuel Sports channel. It's on WTHR. It's on ESPN. It's right here on the Fan, starting at 3:30.
All right, tonight it will be the Boilermakers of Purdue taking on USC. That is on FS1. Boilers favored by 12 in that one. We'll see about Desmond Claude, USC's leading scorer. He was out with a bone bruise last game. That will be something to keep an eye on. But, again, a handle your business week for Purdue. They did it in Iowa on Tuesday. If they do it tonight, they will set up quite the week next week. It's at Michigan. I think they have Wisconsin, and then it's at Michigan State the following week. So the big stretch is about to be here for the Boilers, but certainly need to handle business tonight. As we said, IU and Michigan, that's CBS tomorrow at 1. Butler Providence inside of Hinkle coming up Saturday afternoon at 3.
No Adam Vinatieri, no Reggie Wayne in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Doesn't look like they're going to get in next year either. Antonio Gates, Eric Allen, Jared Allen, and Sterling Sharp are the 4 total. Sterling Sharp, a veteran committee nominee. So you had 3 total current Hall of Famers. Again, Antonio Gates, Eric Allen, Jared Allen. Again, 2026. Whew. that looks rough. So Reggie Wayne, Adam Vinatieri having to probably wait at least a couple more years, but not very good there. The Bills, Josh Allen, your MVP. Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, your coach of the year at the NFL honors last night.
Well, if Kylan throw in and the best of, kind of us talking about the Hall of Fame voting and criteria. I know it was a little confusing, and we probably should have done a better job all week long explaining that. Vinatieri still stuns me. Reggie Wayne, though, does not. Lastly, NFL just announced they're going to play a game also in Dublin next season. So London, Germany, Mexico, Brazil was last year, right? And this year they're going to have Ireland and Spain.
Brazil was this past season, yeah.
Right,
Eagles and
so
Packers.
Ireland and Spain on top of, again, the Colts will play in the Berlin game. That'll be the first game in that city. For what it's worth, it'll be Pittsburgh. The Rooney family has tons of roots in Ireland. They'll be the home team. The Colts do play Pittsburgh on the road. I would assume they won't be the road opponent for this one. But, again, in Dublin coming up this season, the Steelers' home game this year. All right, upcoming, Jason Hammer, Super Bowl bets, Super Bowl prop bets. We'll do that next with him. tomorrow it will be Kendrick Lamar, and the man that's going to join us right now in studio, he made us a lot of money on Thursday nights this season. Is back with us here. It is the Super Bowl. We are ready to go. Jason Hammer, you've got a degenerate special for us?
So we're going to hold on to that until the very end because this one I'm really proud of.
Ooh.
But the game as a whole, I'm calling this the loser in the mirror theory, okay? Because I'm looking at this and I see a lot of the sharps, the experts, they're going with the Eagles. And I get that. These teams are matched up well. Defense travels. I get that. But the loser in the mirror theory is if I bet on the Chiefs and I don't win, I can look at myself in the mirror and go, you hitched your wagon to the best quarterback of this current generation. You hitched your wagon to a really good head coach. Sometimes that happens. But if I bet on the Eagles and the Chiefs win, I've got to look at myself in the mirror that night and go, you dummy, why did you bet on the Eagles against Patrick Mahomes? And
Mahomes and the points, right?
What are you doing, you moron?
I know.
So that's why I'm on the Chiefs full game. Now, I'm not above the Eagles first half. Take a look at Eagles first half. But I am on Chiefs full game. I'm going against the grain here. The quote-unquote experts, all the shows that you watch and follow, a lot of those folks are on the Eagles and the under. I'm not touching the total. I think it's about right.
48.5, is that right?
Yeah. Gun to my head, man, I feel like it's over. This feels like a 27-24 type of game, right? But I feel better about the Chiefs. I can lose that game and go to sleep at night, and I won't feel bad. I'll feel like a moron if I pick Jalen Hurts over Patrick Mahomes and get my ass handed to me.
Gosh, this is like a moral compass for Jason Hammer here on this Friday. We haven't heard this from
laying
Jason
on the couch
Hammer
right now.
Right. It's
all
a therapy
season
session here.
Long. Degenerates Next Door, that's the podcast. Of course, Jason Hammer, you hear him on our sister station every weekday afternoon here with the Hammer and Nigel show. Mark Dykton, you got any player props? Anything you want to throw?
I have a bonus bet that I had to use because it expired before the Super Bowl. As a $27 prop bet, I put it on 2 touchdowns scored by Saquon Barkley. I don't know where you feel on that. I feel like that's possible to happen. But I also know that Saquon Barkley scored over 100 or had over 100 rushing yards in like 9 of 10 games, last 5 straight. But Steve Spagnuolo has slowed down opposing running backs.
Right.
Where are you on this? Am I in the right, thinking that I'm going to hitch my wagon to Saquon Barkley? Or should I be like you and hitch my wagon to the Chiefs and I should have stuck with
What's
Steve
the
Spagnuolo?
juice you got on the 2 touchdowns?
Plus 750.
Yes, plus 750. Ride the lightning. Let's go. Like those are the odds I'm looking for right there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
those are great odds. Yeah.
I feel better about that one than the over the 100 yards. I just feel like if the Chiefs somehow get a lead in this, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but then that makes the Eagles have to throw the ball a little bit more. I'm looking at a couple props here. I've got Jalen Hurts over 200.5 passing yards. This is a workable number here. Even if he's just dumping it off to Saquon Barkley, I feel like 200 is a number. If they're going to win, they're going to have to do something other than running. If they're behind, they're going to have to abandon the run. We got multiple ways to cash that. Dallas Goedert, over 4.5 receptions. If you look at Kansas City defensively throughout the year, they give up a lot of yards, a lot of catches to tight ends. One of the worst defenses in the league at defending tight ends. We're going to go with Goddard over 4.5 receptions. Patrick Mahomes over 23.5 completions. Now, these don't have to be bombs down the field. I feel like a little dink and dunk is going to be their running game against the Eagles. So even if it's to a running back, to Kelsey, we just need 23.5 completions with Patrick Mahomes. I'm on that. Now, those are the ones I feel pretty good about. Let's get kind of nuts here and do some squirrely stuff.
Yes, I like it.
How about first touchdown?
Okay.
The juice isn't quite where I want it to be, but I'm going Jalen Hurts plus 50, plus 550. I feel like we're getting into tush-push territory.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Get down to the 1, it's Jalen Hurts push plus 550. Last touchdown, Xavier Worthy, plus 1,000. Final touchdown, I believe, in a few games for Kansas City. Now, if you really want to get squirrely, Patrick Mahomes. He's only got 2 rushing touchdowns, I think, this year, but he had the final touchdown of the game against Buffalo. Broken play. It's plus 1,800. So maybe if you want to sprinkle a little bit on either one of those guys, if just one of them happens, your toes are tapping. If you feel like the fix is in, If you're somebody that's buying the conspiracy theories and the fix is in, then Travis Kelce for the MVP, right? Doesn't this just reap what the NFL wants? The trophy being handed to Kelce, the MVP award.
Then he's on a knee proposing, all of it. I can see it now.
He's got his pop star girlfriend right there, plus 1,600 for MVP of Kelce.
Boy, that's a big number.
That is a big number.
It's worth a shot, right?
Yeah.
How about this? Will either team attempt a 2-point conversion? Not convert, but just attempt. You can get plus money on that at Bet Rivers. I'm in. You SOB, I'm in. Plus 105 for just attempting a 2. Somebody misses an extra point. Somebody gets down late. All we need is just somebody to go for it, and we get plus money. And overtime. Will there be overtime? This is kind of a Hail Mary. Yes is plus 1,200. So let's say it's 24-24. $5 bet ends up paying about $65 if you're willing to take a gamble on it. Now, for those who are really into conspiracy theories, if the whole NFL ref thing isn't enough, let's talk about the coin toss. You can't be a real degenerate if you don't bet on the coin toss. I'm going tails, and this is why. If you look at the specific coin that they use to flip for the coin toss.
Oh my gosh, you've analyzed the coin?
The heads, it protrudes just a little bit more. Thus, using physics makes it a little bit heavier, so when it lands on the ground...
Look at this Beach Grove education here from Jason Hammer.
Right? The heads lands, it's heavier, tails up. Now, the last couple of years, it's been a big run on heads. I think that flips this year. We're going to ride the lightning, boys, and we're going tails. We're trusting physics.
At that Jason Hammer physics session here. Nothing says we're going to round out the week like a little physics session.
Hanging out at the U.S. Mint, apparently.
I may or may not have looked up the coin manufacturer. I just completely disregarded my duties as a husband and father to study who makes the coin. And I'm telling you, we're going tails here, kids.
Hey, money's money, folks. Longest touchdown, 35.5. You like over or under?
I think over. What's the juice on that?
That's minus 110.
Okay. Even Steven? Yeah, I think over.
Longest field goal, 47.5.
Under.
That's why I said two high-powered offenses feel like they're going to go for it more than go for long field goals.
Eagles kicker, I don't believe is great.
Nope.
Butker's okay, but yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of conversions and going forward on fourth down here.
Okay, before we get to this degenerate special, we have you in studio. I said it earlier in the week. I might as well throw it your way. Which will be higher, the Donald Trump approval rating on February 10th or the total points scored in the Super Bowl?
Depending on who they survey. So, see, there's too many variables here. You talk to a lot of folks in predominantly blue cities,
sure,
then that approval rating's going to stink. Talk to some folks in red cities, then it's going to be good. I got to find out who's doing the survey.
Okay.
Once I find that out.
Well, has anybody ever been asked, anybody in this studio ever been asked about their approval of the president? I have never been.
I can't say that has come in the mail.
I don't know who they're interviewing.
But you know what? That's Hammer's homework right there. I mean, if this man's looking up the mint of the coin, then certainly he's going to be ready.
He's got time on his hands.
All right, let's hear it. The Degenerate special for Sunday night is what?
If we're going to do this, let's do it right. Kylan, cue up the music.
It's time for Hammer's Degenerate special.
What time of the day, Eastern time, will the final play of the game be completed? Over, under, 10 o'clock, 14 minutes, and 59 seconds. I'm going under, and this is why. Sometimes in that game...
So 10-14 is our over-under?
10-14 and 59 seconds.
Okay, 59 seconds, okay.
I'm going to go under here for a number of reasons. One, I think the networks really try to wrap this game up quickly so they can throw on some horrible program they're trying to promote and create.
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen will be on after this. Yeah.
There are some variables that we cannot control. How long will Kendrick Lamar go? He's supposed to have a clock, but you never know. How long will the anthem be? If we get the Bleeding Gums Murphy version, we could be there a while. But if everything goes to plan, with this game starting, probably kicking off around 6:30, I feel like that final play, even if it's a knee with 30 seconds left, that counts. It's the final play completed in the game, 10 o'clock, 14 minutes, 59 seconds, or before. Let's go.
So now you don't want overtime then? That if you're betting overtime,
yeah, you're hedging your bet a little bit. You are.
I agree with you on that. Halftime, do we have a set time? Is it like 30 minutes no matter what, or do we have variance in there with Kendrick Lamar?
There's supposed to be a running clock in there, right?
Right. So, I would think it's 30 max, right?
And the stagehands, I think they're getting in their ear like, okay, start tearing down the stage. If Kendrick's still going up there doing his thing and he sees the stage starting to get torn down, I think that's the signal to wrap it up.
All right, let's go over these one last time here.
Let's go.
He kind of likes Eagles first half. Chiefs game, though, is where you're at. And then from a player prop standpoint, Hurts over 200.5 passing yards. Dallas Goedert over 4.5 receptions. Mahomes over 23.5 completions.
That's it. Those are the ones I feel good about. And then we're going to get nuts on everything else.
I love it.
Let's
I
go.
love it. Degenerates Next Door, the podcast. Jason Hammer, you hear him every afternoon on WIBC. Thank you, Hammer.
Thank you.
That is a Super Bowl special from Jason Hammer right there. All right, we'll round it out. Pop quiz, recap what was certainly a busy night in sports. We'll do that coming up next. A little Kendrick Lamar action coming up Sunday. Halftime show Super Bowl 59. It is a Hall of Fame-centric pop quiz. So go ahead and give us a call. Freebie Friday, so no matter what, Jiffy Lube Oil Change coming your way. Did we go 5 for 5? Was that yesterday?
We did, yeah. Jeremy.
Boy, can we go back-to-back here? And this is simply a yes or no pop quiz. Is this person a first, or was, I should say, this person a first ballot Hall of Famer or not? Scotty,
pretty cut and dry.
Some might say lazy on this Friday.
No.
I might say I like it. I like the theme. And it might be lazy, too.
Don't call Scotty.
I'm the first person ever to call Scotty lazy?
Now he's going to really hammer us on Monday.
I regret it as soon as I said it. Speaking of Hall of Fame, no calls to the Hall last night for the Colts. Again, no Reggie Wayne, no Adam Vinatieri. Sounded like Vinatieri was very, very close. Mike Chappell mentioned that in the cut down from 15 to 10 to 7, Wayne didn't make it from 15 to 10. So Reggie Wayne ain't getting the Hall anytime soon.
Mm-mm.
As much as I might disagree with that, that is how I would summarize it. Vinatieri got to 7. And remember, we've talked about this throughout the show today, Mark, but I think it's worth pointing out again. New criteria now is when you get to 7, the 50-some voters, they can only vote for 5 of the 7. And the 5 must have 80% of the vote to get into the Hall. We're used to in years past, no matter what, it's a 5-person class. That's what we've gotten used to. That was not the case last night. The 80% vote only went to 3 of the 5, or 3 of the 7, I should say, and that ended up being Jared Allen, Eric Allen, and Antonio Gates. So it sounded
Eric
like
Allen one I don't get.
Yeah, Eric Allen I don't get at all. It sounded like Adam Vinatieri was very close to the 80% mark, but this is a new wrinkle to Hall of Fame voting.
Well, and it sounds like he was close this year. Next year, I don't know if he's going to be close, because if you only vote for 5, we've talked about who the class of 2026 is. I mean, there's Drew Brees, there's Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, there's Larry Fitzgerald, there's Frank Gore. He's going to get lost in the shuffle next year. So I feel like him not getting in this year means he's going to probably wait a couple more years, because he's going to get lost in the shuffle next year without a question.
I mean, next year's class is as loaded as I've seen it. Scotty, I know right around the turn of the century, we had some loaded classes, 99 and 2000. I mean, this one is right up there. So Vinatieri, yeah, to your point, Mark, he will certainly wait. I mean, first balloters, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, and Adrian Peterson are no-brainers. We had Greg Rakestraw on earlier. He thinks Big Ben's a no-brainer. I don't think I'm there on first ballot for Big Ben, but certainly you can make a case for him. You still have got guys like Jason Witten, who's got a very comparable resume to Antonio Gates. Frank Gore, I think, should be a Hall of Famer eventually. And then some would say Phillip Rivers. So, I was surprised by Vinatieri. I thought he was deserving of the first ballot, but he did not get that call. All right, it is time for the pop quiz. Jiffy Lube Oil Change on a Freebie Friday. Mark Dighton, what do you got?
Let's go fast fingers. We had luck with that the other day with 5 for 5. I think Jeremy was his name. He did excellent yesterday. So let's go fast fingers on this Friday before the Super Bowl, Kylan.
All right, that lands us with Tom.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning.
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
Morning.
Tom, what's on the weekend agenda?
I might watch some Pacers. Not a lot. Kind of elderly. Not really, but I'm kidding. Not a lot.
Okay. All right. Well,
watch the sporting events.
Well, watch them.
Watch the Phoenix Open for sure.
Okay. A little waste management action there. Did you watch any of that yesterday, Mark?
I did dabble a little bit.
It's kind of a calm day on the 16th hole. We'll see if we get any more fireworks.
It's going to rev up in these next 48 hours.
Coming up today. I did watch a little bit last night. Okay, Tom, this is a very simple pop quiz. We're going to give you a name of an NFL player, and you simply tell us yes or no if this person was a first ballot Hall of Famer or not. Mark Dighton, begin.
Okay. Tom, let's start local. Peyton Manning.
Yes.
That might be the easiest question of all time in the pop quiz.
Tom, Orlando Pace.
Well, you're getting a little bit more difficult here now, aren't you?
We are, yes.
No.
Brian Dawkins.
No.
Tom, do you study the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Every day.
Damn, this is quite the start here. Tom, how about Warren Sapp?
It's either yes or no on these answers.
Correct. Yep. Very simple. Yep. Right. Yes or no.
I'm saying yes.
All right, Tom. Last but not least.
Tom, we need a quick answer here.
Thurman Thomas.
Yes.
Well, that might be the shortest pop quiz of all time because it was a short question, short answer.
Boy,
Simple enough.
I would have really struggled with that. I would have said Orlando. I mean, hell, I would have said yes on pretty much all of them. I mean, I guess I should have known Scotty would have had a few no's there. Peyton was an obvious yes.
Orlando Pace.
I would have guessed yes.
No
on that, Scotty?
It took the second year of eligibility in 2016 for Orlando Pace to get in.
And I might have guessed yes on the next one, Brian Dawkins.
That was also a no. That was the second year of eligibility in 2018 for Brian Dawkins.
So Tom cooked up a little 4 for 4. He got a Warren Sapp as well.
Came down to Thurman Thomas.
Thomas, eligible first ballot, if he was, in 2006. Mark Dykton, he got the call to the Hall in
2007, his second year of eligibility. Tom, hang in there. Kylan will get your information, but a 4 for 5 effort on this freebie 5 from Tom.
Scotty was sweating like Rex Ryan in a foot parlor.
Oh my God, that's quite the scene.
Unbelievable. Have we had ever back-to-backs?
I don't think so. The streak remains.
Man, that was a good effort there by Tom.
Our back-to-back streak on pop quizzes is like Mike Woodson's streak of beating ranked opponents. It hasn't happened.
Yeah, 0-10, Mike Woodson in that era. We'll await some clarity today, if any at all, from Indiana. Again, we had Zach Osterman on. That'll be up on the podcast right now. From the sounds of it, this marriage is going to be over. How it will be over, I guess, is what remains to be seen. So we'll continue to monitor that all day long. And then, Mark, final Pacer game of the year, hallelujah, that will tip later than 8 o'clock. That was last night, 10:30 tip, the latest tip they have all season long. And for those that missed it, it was a wild one. They were down 20 at the end of the first quarter, roaring back in the second. They actually had a halftime lead. And then, for the most part, they were down in the second half, but they made the plays late, and they got it done. One of the crazier Pacer games of the season.
Yeah, it would be nice that they're on like more manageable times for tip-off times, because 10:30, I don't care what kind of Pacers fan you are, unless you're getting a nap yesterday, it's going to be hard to stay up till the end of that one. But good to see them get the win. Nice effort by Pascal Siakam. Halliburton hopefully busting out of his slump. So we'll see what happens. Miles Turner's status for tomorrow, we'll have to see if they give an update today as well, because like you said, he got banged up, and while we're not sure if it was a concussion,
he was wobbling.
Yeah,
I mean,
it didn't look great.
It looked very NFL-like, and caught an inadvertent Benedict Mathurin arm, elbow. I forget exactly what it was there. He exited early first quarter. But as I said, I thought Ben Shepherd was great. Benedict Mathurin had one of his best games. You know, you look at the Mathurin stat line, 4 assists and no turnovers. I mean, he wasn't just efficient, scoring-wise, but that is also something that you look to. And Siakam, I mean, that was just an all-star effort from him. 33 and whatever he had rebounding-wise, it was double-double. Was asked to guard Kawhi a whole lot. I know Kawhi is probably a little bit past his prime, but still gave a nice effort on that end. And I thought Thomas Bryant scrapped. I mean, it was ugly with Thomas Bryant for long stretches against Utah on Monday night. I thought he did a nice job because Zubac, the big dude for the Clippers, he usually owns them.
He does do a hell of a job. They always seem to struggle against big men. Somebody sent you an Andrew Bynum picture.
How glorious is that?
Michael on Twitter sent out in honor of KB's Andrew Bynum love affair. Yeah, you need to get kind of correct on your Andrew Bynum history, because you were like lathered up about this big game he had, and then you realize, like, well, maybe he didn't have such a big game as you thought.
Maybe I was thinking of the second game, but I swear he looked like Shaq out there.
Maybe he did, just because you hadn't seen that guy.
This poster is awesome. This picture of Lance, Chris Copeland. Shout out to Chris Copeland. Remember him? That dude used to get in and used to gun.
Yeah, that frame is excellent that guy has.
Is that
Tons
Frank
of autographs.
Vogel, like, eating a burger?
It looks like Frank Vogel eating a tenderloin. I don't know what's going on there.
We need Carlisle.
And then
taking one of those pictures.
Hibbert, they're playing arcade game. It's I've never seen that poster like that before. It's outstanding. I like it. We'll see. You need to try to request that Andrew Bynum autograph, though.
That is beautiful.
Put in your
Super Bowl pick, Mark Dykton. What do you got?
I'm going to go with Hammer. I'm going to roll with the Chiefs. It'd be kind of stupid not to, but I will be pulling for the Eagles, especially that 2-touchdown thing for Saquon Barkley, but I have a feeling the Chiefs are going to be three-peating here. And we're going to be having another red and blue or red and yellow confetti falling from New Orleans. You?
Eagles.
Okay. I'm not going to hate it.
27-23 Eagles. Jason Hammer would call me the loser in the mirror. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And not betting on the Chiefs. I just think Philadelphia's front four can get it done. You know, I thought, you go back to the start of the playoffs, I thought Houston would give Kansas City a competitive game, and I know I got a little bit of pushback on that. I thought Houston's front four did a really nice job in that game. I think Philadelphia's got more around their front four. Like for Houston, they just kind of ran out of gas and just didn't have enough. I don't think Buffalo has a great front. I think Philadelphia's got a little bit more of that. And then Barkley, of course, can carry so much of that. So,
I'll take Chiefs 28-24.
We've been fortunate to have some really good Super Bowls here.
And they had
of
a
late.
good one last time they matched up together.
I'd be stunned if we didn't get another good one.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. Should be good.
Getting you set for the entire weekend. Tonight you got Purdue in action in Mackey. That is against USC. You've got the Pacers at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So tomorrow afternoon's busy. Indiana, Michigan at 1. We'll see the reaction to Dusty May and Mike Woodson. Butler, Providence at 3. You've got, again, the Pacers at 4. And then sliding into Sunday, of course, you've got the Super Bowl at 6:30. Thank you to Zach Osterman. Thank you to Scott Agnes. Thank you to Greg Rakestraw. Thank you to Kylan Talley. It's been a crazy week. Kylan, thank you for your work. Mark Dykton, you and I on Monday again.
Let's do it again.
Everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Super Bowl Monday.